Hey there, everybody. How are you doing this evening? Thank you for joining us for Vegas Summer League stream number 5, aka the Cleveland Cavalier stream on accident. I'm joined by some wonderful people this evening. This is an esteemed group. I don't think there's another way to say it. Gentlemen, how are you doing this evening?
Good. I'm chilling. Yeah, I'm ready to talk about Quentin Grimes eventually. By the way, he didn't face the Cavs. I don't know if that so maybe I broke the Cavs streak.
Okay, maybe I just.
He was the Hawks. Granted, it's a red and gold uniform, so you're forgiven.
I may have a little bit of sleep deprivation madness.
That's okay. Don't we all? Don't we all?
Let's just go around and introduce everybody, or let them know, your deal or where you can be found.
Who wants to go first? Should I guess. Okay. What's up? I'm Alex Wolfe. You can find me on Twitter at the Alex Wolfe. I host the Locked On Knicks podcast, and I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, the Strickland. You can find that at thestrict.land, where I edit work of a bunch of people that are probably way smarter than me. But some stuff rubs off on me, so that's why I came here, so I can let some of that knowledge that is rubbed off on me impart on everybody watching the stream, I guess. But yeah, that's where you can find me on both those places.
I'm Bowser2Bowser. That's the number 2 Bowser. You can find me on Twitter at Bowser2Bowser. I also contribute to Peachtree Hoops, and I wrote a handy guide called the Basketball Action Dictionary. So if you ever hear people talk about Spain pick and rolls or Ram pick and rolls or any type of pick and rolls, you can go to that website, and hopefully I have a definition and videos for you there. But you can also basically find anything you want to find about my writing on Twitter.
Yeah, obviously I'm Evin. That's a shout out to our friend Mark Schindler. Evin Gualberto, my YouTube channel for NBA stuff, bouncing around, for WNBA stuff, the step through, do breakdowns, stuff like that. So I'm around.
To put it mildly, and we will be joined by Damon Allred shortly. All right. I'm excited to get into this. Up first, we have Evan Mobley. What are the areas of attention that jumped out to you with Evan Mobley?
Areas of attention for me, one of them was, so we all know he needs to add strength, add pounds or whatever, but one of the things I was worried or just curious to see was how well can he perform until then? Until he, hopefully he adds all the strength that we want him to add, all the pounds or whatever. But can he find a way with NBA competition? And that was one of the things I was curious to see. But the biggest thing I was curious to see was, how are the Cavs going to use him? Is he going to be a power forward who's just picking and popping? Is he a play finisher? And is he actually going to get some initiation duties, some decision-making duties? And I was actually very happy to see that, because I was kind of curious, depending on the team that drafted him, are they going to make him, a rolling cut big at first, or are they going to make him a big wing like Jonathan Isaac? I didn't know what was going to happen with him. And I was happy with what I saw at Summer League, of course, the Summer League. Other things, it was, what did I write down? What situations can he be put in to sort of minimize the impact of his lack of strength, lack of frame, and to maximize his skills until then, sort of playing the 4, playing the 5, play design, who's his best sidekick, things like that. And then a lot of it I wanted to see, because even if he was playing power forward at USC, power forward in the NBA is a way different position than power forward in college basketball. There's just the USC especially, but a lot of other teams as well. A lot of the opponents they had, they would have 2 bigs, a lot of interior. And so, he would switch onto guards on the perimeter. They would put him in the 3-2 zone, kind of on the perimeter as well. but that's a lot different from like having nail defender responsibilities, stuff like that. So I wanted to see how he would do being a full-time perimeter defender, not just a interior defender who gets switched outside. And then to deal with contact, people have said, he lacks a killer instinct and stuff like that. And I don't necessarily buy all of that, but I do think he has a certain approach to basketball that like was born out of a situation of being smaller than his older brother. That is maybe not true anymore. Like now he's the tallest guy on the court. And so how would he deal with contact? And this is sort of, I'm trying to keep that point regardless of the strength, but just what is his relationship with contact, basically, as he morphs into being one of the bigger guys on the court, even if he could add 20 pounds or so. So those are my big areas of intention for him.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely aligns with, where I was at, pre-draft. And I think the general book on him, I think the thing that I was interested in is like Summer League doesn't really do well for guys who think the game at a really high level. Like just that stuff's not really available because there's not like schemes. Like you have ideas of schemes, you have the intention to have schemes. They might run some plays, but like everybody isn't like rotating off an internalized process. And he doesn't hit the talent button that often. Like we're just like, okay, like let's just make this happen. And I was really curious to see how he balanced those two in a much more loose setting. So today's also going to be a little different because we are. I just kind of let everybody do their thing instead of going chronological. So these are broken. We have the first segment. The Mobley breakdown broken up into segments. Up first is playmaking. All right, now on the tape. Baz, are you seeing this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this play, one of the things if you're going to guard Mobley with a smaller defender, which a lot of teams have done even back at college, he's so tall, he's such a good playmaker that he has way better passing vision and passing angles. So even if like maybe they can contain his driving, putting him in playmaking responsibilities is such an advantage because he can see over Franz Wagner, or he can see over Marcus Garrett when they played, or he can see over the smaller guys that he would get from time to time, because he wasn't guarded by Sengun, he was guarded by Kenyon Martin. Not that there's a big difference in height there. It's like, yep. All right, some motorbikes going past my house.
Okay.
And so the playmaking, I think, is such a big avenue for him to be successful. And this play where he's flashing to the elbow, and it's interesting. So notice where he wants to catch the ball and then where he ends up catching the ball, right? Like he starts near the free throw line, sort of at the L right there, like right at the elbow. And then he gets pushed almost to the 3-point line, which isn't a big deal in this play, but it's going to come up later on. And he's got the probably a fake DHO, but the optional of a DHO, the over, and then he's got this backdoor cut, which looks very designed.
That was my fault for cutting it weird.
No,
we will see this play later.
It's the same play, and there's a slight nuance to the two plays, but one thing I love is watch how he cocks his right elbow back right there to sell the fake. And I just love that because he did that on both of these examples of the backdoor cuts from the elbow. And I just he's got this craft of manipulating the defenders. And yeah, you can say everything you want about it, Summer League, but you still got to succeed versus your competition level. And he has this great touch on this. And the guy, and then who is that? Is that number 8? Is that Steve? He almost doesn't.
Stevens. Yeah.
It is Lamar Stevens. That's what I thought, but he almost doesn't catch it cleanly, if I remember correctly. And
let me run back to the original, which is a much cleaner cut.
Because it looks like a much better pass than the finish ends up being. So I think Lamar Stevens kind of fumbles it a little bit. But almost Lamar Stevens has to I think he looks back at it to make sure it goes down. But this is also one thing I think is interesting is that if you try to project this to rookie year Evan Mobley, is he playing the 5 or the 4? And if he's playing the 4, that means in the far corner would be Jared Allen, who is not as good of a shooter as Kevin Gelly. And so there's going to be less gravity to the far side corner. So you see some of that in this play. Now, in this play, if you could back up to the beginning, if you notice the screen that's set at the beginning of this, because Mobley keeps getting pushed out from, like, if he wants to catch the ball at the elbow, he catches the ball higher and higher. And so they have to screen him to get him open at the elbow, which is, not a big deal, but it's not like a great sign, because every time you have to do one more thing, it just slows the play down. It takes seconds off the shot clock. It's more likely to end in a bad shot. And so it's the same play, and he is probably supposed to catch the ball near the elbow, but is at the 3-point line this time. He does the same cock back, then, if it works, why change it up? And so I just love it that he has this sort of fake into the back door and that it works twice in a row, because at the same time, why is this guy going to go over the DHO to Isaac Okoro? I love Isaac Okoro, but he's not exactly the, threat that you want to aggressively go over the handoffs with. And so maybe not the smartest decision defensively. And also, because that's 71, I remember his name, but he was the center for Orlando, and he's there to at least challenge him. So I try to think about rookie year Evan Mobley, and if that's Jared Allen in the far corner, not Kevin Galley, there's even less gravity. And so that these backdoor cuts, these playmaking opportunities are a little bit less attractive if he's playing the 4 instead of playing the 5, just based on circumstance. And then here we got some Horns chin action, and this is kind of funny. So if you watch Mobley put his hands up, like because the cutter, the point guard passes the ball and then cuts off the chin screen, and he's open for the back door for the layup, right? But he sort of pauses for whatever reason. I don't know. It's, I have the same thing with my own players doing this every once in a while. But you see Evan Mobley getting frustrated because he throws the perfectly timed pass where I feel like the offensive player doesn't even realize he's open, and that's why he pauses. But the pass is so well timed and such in a good place. And also, if you see his passing angle from Mobley, that's just a benefit of if you want to put a smaller, quicker defender on him, you're going to give this passing angle. He's almost doing a hook pass, right? Like he's one-handed, arm fully extended, and he gets this pass in a small window, but it's such an unlikely pass that the point guard doesn't even think he's going to get it, even though the play is designed for him to get this pass. But sure enough, he finishes and he gets the layup, and then all's well that ends well. And they ran these Horns plays a lot. I have not seen this many Horns plays from an NBA team in some time. And here's the same play, but it's supposed to go to the handoff. The handoff's not there because they switched the initial chin screen, and Okoro comes in and fails him. So this is kind of interesting to me because first, look at how much Mobley is struggling just to get the post feed, right? He's a 7-footer with a 7'4", 7'5" wingspan. Is that Wagner on him? Yeah, so he's got Wagner on him, so he's given up some inches to Mobley. You would hope it wouldn't be so hard to feed Mobley with this size discrepancy between him and his defender, and that seems to be a common theme. So that's just one thing I've been watching of sort of the smaller things of. We always watch strength issues always comes down to post ups and whatever else, but it also comes down to just getting him the ball in the elbow versus the 3-point line. And I like that he knew not to do the handoff, and now he can just go ISO at the nail, fumbles the pass. Okoro, thank you for that cut because it made Mobley, it kind of bailed Mobley out. But one thing I like about this play is that Mobley never seems to panic. He loses his dribble. He almost, no matter what kind of happens on the court, I almost never see him do that oh shoot kind of look in his eyes. And so that's why one of the things I'm excited for him as a decision maker, ball handler going forward is that, PD, you would know better than I do, but I almost never see him have that kind of panic look. And I think sometimes we misconstrue that as effort. Because because like someone who's slow to react and then reacts with their whole body. We're like, oh, they have good, they had, perceived it slowly, but they have a lot of effort. It's like, well, if you can perceive it from the get-go and start moving that way right away, that's even faster than being physically fast, right? And so I like Mobley's long-term potential offensively and defensively, just because he just seems calm all the time. And I think that's a good thing. I think people say like it's a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing. And then on this play, they ran this play earlier. And if you could scroll back to the beginning of the play, it's sort of a back screen that's supposed to turn into a DHO. So the player who sets the back screen for, I think that's Okoro, is supposed to come over for, or at least earlier in the play, he came over for the handoff from Mobley. But right here, he sets the inverted ball screen. Now, this had worked earlier on for Mobley, but what Orlando did differently is that they would have the screener's defender jump, what we call a jump switch or head switch or whatever, where you basically you kind of hedge the screen. You hedge the screen, so you're jumping the ball handler and kind of lunge, and Mobley picks up his dribble, right? So he's got the high hips, he's got the height advantage, and if guards are going to jump into, are going to jump switch him or do this or whatever, and he picks up the dribble every time, that's not a good sign. Now, I was very happy to see that in the next game, he dribbled around this guy, not like the best way, but I was very happy that it was like one of the things I wanted him to do. The very next game, he did it. But regardless of that, these two plays are interesting to me. This and the Okoro's 45 cut, because both of them are sort of, the play breaks down, nothing's really looking good, and then he can kind of keep you can maybe say he gets bailed out by Cutter, but he keeps his cool. He sees the cutter, he makes the pass, and he either gets the assist or he gets what should have been an assist in the case of Okoro. Now this play, I have no idea what it was supposed to be, but if Mobley's making pull-up three-pointers, like this is technically a 2, I think his foot's on the line, but it's way different if he's knocking down, pick and popping, or if he's, there's a rotation and he hits the open 3 in the corner, like that's one thing. But if he's stretching the defense through his pull-up game, that's a way different player 5 years from now. And obviously, he looks. Petey, what do you think about his form now in this play? Do you notice a big difference between this and USC?
I mean, it's a little bit better in the legs. That's the thing that jumps out to me, is like it's a little less segmented.
Yeah.
But he's still not taking them. Like that's the I don't even care about the form as much as like I would just like the volume to rise. As a developmental point, I mean, he's being guarded by Franz, who like the same thing. I mean, Franz is a better shooter on average, but Franz also like just needs to get shots up. And I just want to see Mobley not pass up these shots, because like so often we're judging his form on like really, really limited attempts, aside from the areas where he's most comfortable, which is like 16 foot and like these, mid post fadeaways that he gets because, he can't really hold post position. So I think that there's encouraging signs, but the most encouraging sign for me is shooting volume, not necessarily the form unto itself.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before, and I was going to ask, how does like the player's perceived personality fit into that? Of sort of like, because shooting volume is a sign of the confidence in their shot, but some players are just going to shoot more than other players based on their personality. And would you take in like Mobley's personality versus Josh Christopher's personality of volume of pull-up threes? Would that influence your opinion of the prospect at all?
I mean, I think that the personality alone might not. I think that what's more important is like we've kind of seen the last 3 years that like he's had these moments where he should be shooting, like the form is good enough and just like the volumes never come. So for me, it's less the personality and more the historical results. Where like the personality comes into play where you're like, all right, so it's been 2 years of you like flashing this stuff and it looking pretty good. what do we have to do? I mean, I think for him, he's one of the guys who like always wants to take perfect shots on every possession. And because, that possession was pretty broken down, he, I don't want to say tricked himself, but convinced himself that was a good shot. And I mean, you could say the same thing about like Teo Maladon. There's a lot of guys, Patrick Williams, where we're just figuring out the circumstances where like the play is like read 1, read 2, read 3. And if like the first 2, 3 reads aren't open, then read 3 is you shooting the ball. Putting him in those situations, like recognizing that, yeah, he's always going to want to over process possessions. Having something where like instead of read 3 being the jumper, you move it up to read 2. Saying like, this isn't open, I want you to shoot every single time. You're doing the right thing on this play.
Would you say he's an example of academy brain?
I don't think fully, because I think that he has too much trust in the system. But I think that for him, he just wants to. I think that his perfect situation is honestly playing on like the 2014 Warriors. Like that's his idea of basketball. But I don't think it's fully academy where like he doesn't want to do it, because on defense he'll break scheme. Like he'll break scheme to do the right thing. It's just on offense. I think that he views himself as a point guard, and that his job is to set the table. And so you get a lot of like, I'll sacrifice my own stuff for the team, because like most of his life he was in fact the point guard.
So this play, if you notice, he has his feet on the logo when he catches the ball, which is his back to like, he's not a threat from shooting as much as we have said he is a good shooter. We want to see him shoot more, but not from the logo. And it's just like a kind of a big sign that Orlando did this really well of just pushing him further and further away from his comfort zones, and to where he has to get the ball there. And then they're trying to run this kind of down Chicago, but then this guy, and they both back cut. So I don't know if that's a read or design play, but now you've got 4 guys on the right side and Mobley ISOing. I don't know if that's a design, if it is interesting. But we all know Mobley loves the spin move. And it's usually to the left. Here, this time he goes to the right. I actually think like this is a good spin move, but he's also spinning toward the 4 defenders. Like he doesn't know, which of those 4 is going to be right there. But the bigger thing is, I think this is like a strength issue of where the guy gets to jump. I think if he's stronger, this is either a dunk or it's a foul. It's not a jump ball. And I think we talk a lot about the different like strength issue. I always see it on rebounds and like post ups. But like even like right here, he's got those long arms, and if a defender can get their arms really close to their body and get their 2 hands on the ball, that's not a good sign, especially because he loves that spin move, and so he's going to have his back to the help defense. So one thing I kind of wish he would just spin move into a dunk more. You kind of see Giannis and Pascal spin move or Euro step into a dunk. And he does like a lot of finesse moves. Like you can tell he played against his older brother growing up, and he wasn't stronger than his older brother, and he found other ways to score. And now it's like, but now you're the biggest guy in the court. You're not the younger brother anymore. And so this is the time where I actually thought the spin move was a good move for the defender, but also the defender's probably smart, knowing that he has help to the left and not to the right. But the fact that this guy gets the jump ball on him. This seemed to be more of one of those micro instances of I wanted him to see more strength, but am I off on that, PD? Would you disagree?
I think that the spin move is fine. I mean, his front foot isn't pointing towards the rim once he does it. It's just that like there are times where he needs creativity in small spaces, and I just don't feel like he has it. I mean, this is somewhat similar to RJ Barrett when he was around the same age, where like RJ had moves that worked, but he like the more nuanced situations he was in, he didn't always have the right repertoire like for that moment. And like a lot of times, like especially like if you watch him in transition, he only has 2 moves in transition that he's really comfortable with. And this to me seems like a case where like there were a couple of moves that probably work here, and I think the spin move is fine. The execution of it's a little bit shaky. Obviously this foot is pointing over towards help rather than towards the rim, which would have probably got him a foul versus a tie-up. But just the finishing creation in short spaces and just finding new and interesting ways to challenge defenders is going to be important, because I think if he had to do this again, he probably just fakes middle and comes back and shoots a fadeaway.
Yeah, he had a good kind of fake spin against Kispert in the Gonzaga game, and I keep hoping to see more of that. So this is the silent out of bounds play that almost every NBA team runs, where they run sort of a screen to screen interaction with a back screen and then a pin down screen. And so if you see what's going to happen is there's going to be a back screen for the inbounder, and then Okoro is going to come off the down screen. But Mobley sees the alley to drive to the hoop. And like, I feel like he has the high hips, but when he realizes that he can get his hips lower, I think he has a lot of untapped strength in a way. Because he seems like a strong dude. He seems like a guy who's done yoga. He's got that like strength, but it's more about, you know, leverage and angles as opposed to just like how many pounds you squat or bench press or whatever. And so this play, if he can punish smaller defenders like this more often, it's going to make very big mismatches, because then what do? You put him on you put a center on him. Well, he can dribble past a lot of centers. And so I wanted to include this play just because it's not like he's like this feeble. Like if you don't watch that much Mobley and you always hear strength, 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 you might think he's like this feeble arm guy, but he's not. He's just sort of more wiry and like not as strong as he needs to be, as opposed to like the weakest guy ever. And this play, I especially like it because if he's such a good decision maker, playmaker, you can use these off-ball screening actions that give him a choice. If there's no like driving angle for him, he can just run the play, or he can try to isolate, which is what the Rockets did with James Harden. They started doing more like stagger screens away, so Harden could isolate his defender while the defense is being occupied with some off-ball screens that are maybe a decoy, but there may be an outlet in case the isolation doesn't present itself any good opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is a good idea. It's just that, like, when I say point your foot to the rim, this is the opposite of what I mean. I mean, he's totally lost his balance. This is just a circumstance where you need a totally different footwork combination. Like, again, I don't know how much of this is actually lacking creativity or him, like, just having self-awareness and knowing what he lacks in, like, what he can pull off. But, yeah, that stuff needs quite a bit of zhuzhing up.
So, PD, among prospects that are, let's say, lottery picks or first rounders who are projected to be centers, where does Mobley rank in terms of screeners? Like percentile or anything?
Like 15th percentile? It's bad.
Right? Like
it's bad.
It's bad. It's really bad. And so this play, I think this play is hilarious to me because I think this is the earliest in a game I've ever seen a pre-switch that wasn't at the end of a shot clock or end of a quarter, because Tima is on. It's a Tima with the blonde hair who Evan says looks like Nick Carter. Tima is guarding Mobley, and then Mobley goes to set the ball screen, and then they pre-switch that, which is just hilarious to me because it's like first quarter, it's like 6 minutes into the game, and they're already pre-switching. And I thought, one, good heads-up play from Tima, but two, also just too hilarious. Like he's fighting for his NBA life. He's like, nah, I don't want to be in this. So I think Cleveland might have just been trying to force a switch here. I'm not 100% certain on that, but even if that's the case, if you go back to when he stops and sets the screen, PD, like look how he's way too high. He doesn't like. So you look at how high he is right now. Cole Anthony can just go under, no matter how good of a shooter, unless that's Dame. Cole Anthony can go under that screen and there's no problem. So he's way too high. Like even it's not just like. The screening is kind of wrong on so many levels in a way. And right there, it's so easy for the on-ball defender to go under the screen. Even if that's Darius Garland dribbling the ball, that's a very deep three that he would have to hit to punish Cole Anthony for going under that screen. So because it's so high up, he can go under the screen. And even if they wanted to get a switch, they don't have to because that screen is out of place and he gets almost no contact with Cole Anthony. And then after it happens, because he's so high up, like he pops on this one, but it's like he pops, he rolls, doesn't even really matter. And of all the things, like if he's going to be the center, around three wings and a point guard, he is going to have to set a lot of screens. You know, if you picture like the typical, point guard, wings, center that like the Phoenix Suns use, that the Utah Jazz use as a roster construction. He's going to have to get better at these screening. And there's so many things that we can, nitpick about it. Like it's this, but it's like to spend time on any one detail. Like he doesn't get the contact. He doesn't make himself broad. He's too high up. A lot of it is like, if they have Okoro playing the power forward, for instance, he's not going to be setting all your screens to run your offense. So he needs to be the good screener if he wants to be the 5. And if he's a 4, it's less of an issue, but it's still an issue regardless.
Yeah,
It's
also he's not doing the full like I'm setting bad screens as performance art because I don't want to do this. I just don't think he knows how to screen.
It's weird. Yeah,
it's just bad. Like I don't think you even need more than like it's bad. It needs to get a lot better. But like oh boy, it's bad.
And that performance art thing really speaks to me. Sorry, that's a big Knicks trend. The setting bad screens just because you feel like it, even though you're huge.
Yeah, it's
that's why you don't want to get yelled at film the next day.
Oh no! See, I think it's the opposite. Being like, why would you want me to set the screen? Look how terrible I am at it. It's like I can't do dishes. Look, every time I do them,
Mitchell Robinson
so
special.
Bad. Yeah,
strategic incompetence.
Yeah, strategic incompetence.
The Mitch special is, and this used to be the Porzingis special too, was like act like you're setting a screen, then the last second just put your hands out real quick and then just kind of like push off a tiny bit and then start like going towards the hoop or whatever. It's fantastic. Nobody ever just takes the contact. Taj Gibson has been a revelation though. Anyway, sorry.
Do you guys remember another big? So Alex, does this look like Porzingis of like performance art, or does it look like he's just not a good screener? Like he doesn't know what to do?
I think I would probably agree with PD that it doesn't seem like he's actively avoiding it. It kind of just seems like he doesn't quite know what he's. I mean, there might be part of it too where he's just not comfortable taking that contact.
Yeah.
Certainly. Because he is pretty thin. I mean, to your point, he does seem kind of like wiry strong, but he's pretty thin. Like, I don't think it's uncommon when guys come into the league like that, especially in summer league too. Maybe being a little more afraid to take that contact because you're not even in the real season yet. It's sort of just like a run through, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's all theorizing, though. I'm not.
If there's
on anything
thing,
actually.
If there's one thing about collisions, you don't want to be wiry strong at collisions. Like you can't look at when you look at NFL players or hockey players, you don't ever look at them and think, "What a wiry strong guy." You're like, that's a huge human being who like it would suck to get hit by. So like, I mean, maybe there's a business decision here. To me, it doesn't look like a business decision. It doesn't look like performance art. It just looks like this is not competence, and it needs to get better. I wish like fake screen performance art is legit my favorite thing in the NBA. Guys are just like, you don't want to make me do this. I don't want to do this. Let's just avoid the charade. That's honestly like a top 10 thing. To be 6'11" and hate setting screens is like perfect. I just don't think that's particularly Mobley's personality, and more than anything, he just like wants people to slip it or interact with it some different way that doesn't result in him like really getting hit.
So. Speaking of the RIP DHO, this is the exact play we were talking about earlier. And you can see how well Mobley is at. So he's supposed to go under this. So first off, watch that screen that I don't know who 52's name, but just contrast Mobley's screen in the last play with the screen 52 the ball handler sets in like 2 seconds. And just watch how the on-ball defender gets like stood up and has to, even though he goes under it, he still can't recover in time to cut off his man. And so, Mobley, bless his heart, is so good at getting off of his guy and covering his teammates' mistakes. And even at USC, he was so great at that. But it's so funny because like he is so good with his hands and like deflections that he almost. I trying to think of like another big his age who was so like usually I feel like with younger guys they're good at blocks, they're good at for bigs, but how many of them are like putting their hand into your waist and getting stripping the ball without fouling? And he's so good at both of that. And I just like it's so funny to see that screen versus this screen, and then how Mobley can erase a lot of mistakes on defense. And like that's kind of one of the things that like if you put him at the forward, if he's a more Jonathan Isaac type instead of the Rudy Gobert type, yeah, he can still be an elite defender, but I think you want him doing as being in defensive positions as much as possible. This is the play where he gets 45 cut and so, all right, this is the ball screen. Okay, so they're ball screening to a pick and pop, which is almost always, or not almost always, but very, very often, if there's a pick and pop, the guy on the weak side wing makes that 45 cut. And the fact that Mobley was slow to notice that kind of just told me, oh yeah, he's been playing again, because like a lot of us probably watch way more NBA.
I have
please do. Oh, please.
So
yeah, please let me hear.
And this might just be from like, like sitting fairly close, but like to me, Mobley got back cut a ton and like struggled with, I would say, like losing his man quite a bit. And it didn't look like a guy who didn't know what was happening. It looked like a guy who was trying to compensate for the fact that there wasn't a defensive scheme. So he's like trying to go outside of his area and basically like play one man coverage. And how that worked was often that like teams were just like, oh yeah, he's over helping back at, oh, he's like, ball watching to try to, erase mistakes. And, you could see some of the frustrations. I mean, similar to Cade, where it's like, well, there was supposed to be rotation there. Why didn't you do it? I'm like, it's a summer league rotation. Like, that's just not going to happen. And to me, a lot of this doesn't look like a guy who's like unaware of the scheme. It looks like a dude who's so focused on like trying to cover up. Like, again, this rotation, not made for whatever reason. Like, it's just not. And so he's staring at the ball being like, okay, I'm going to help when this guy drives. And because he's, trying to do two jobs, he gets back cut, doesn't do his own job properly. And that happened over and over again. And I mean, like the rest of the possession goes good. He's able to, do.
Yeah, that's one of the. Even when he makes a mistake, he can then switch on to Cole Anthony and make up for it. So this play, because he seems to, after he realizes the cut, he starts taking a few steps toward his man on the wing while the man on the wing's making the 40. So this one seemed a little bit like, what are you doing here? But it's kind of amazing. Like, even when he's bad, he's still good, right? Yeah. And Cole Anthony, he got quite a lottery pick last year, whatever he was, had a great rookie season. He gets a rookie center switch on him and doesn't even try. But this is one of my favorite, type of skills of him and drop. Like, as much as we love the switching, a big who switches, it's great. I love it. But the ability to do the Brook Lopez of cat and mouse game as a 20-year-old, of where he can just so accurately, in my opinion, judge who's the biggest threat and jump in between the bigger threat at all times, but also to sort of right there, he's sort of lunging forward, knowing he's going to force him to pass. He's going to contest that shot if you want to shoot it, but he knows that the on-ball defender is recovering and he can kind of retreat while being in a position to contest the shot. And then this one is sort of the opposite. Now it's like, yes, you can swivel your hips very well, but he has this great, Cole Anthony has this great sort of push through dribble right when he swivels his hips. And that's one of the things I worry about with his big hips, or sorry, his high hips, not big hips, is if you get him to change directions very often, is he going to be susceptible? And then Cole Anthony getting into his body and keeping Evan Mobley from blocking the shot. And I think a year ago, Mobley blocks that, whatever college basketball player's layup. But, Cole Anthony is 1 year pro. So it's just going to get harder and harder when it's, Chris Paul or whoever doing this to him instead. And this seems to be big on leverage, body control. He has great, not body control. He has great body control, but can he hit the ball handler before the ball handler hits him? Can he initiate the contact and not let the guy use his body to get just enough to get a layup? Because Cole Anthony is good for summer league, but it only gets harder from there going forward. And so if he's going to be your full-time rim protector, as I hope he is one day, the fact that he tried to dunk that put back, I really wanted that one to go down. But here's a much better example. Yeah. He did it twice with the left. He gets Jalen Suggs to. Yeah, Jalen Suggs gets. I think it's Jalen Suggs, right?
Yep.
It's a little bit blurry on my screen for some reason. He gets Jalen Suggs to snake around, and then he thinks he has a pull up, and then he actually, so this should be a block or a missed shot, but Jalen Suggs realizes that he has no option here because that hand is right there and going to block it. So he has to throw a pass that he wasn't planning on throwing, and it's a turnover. And it's, and, you know, the whole like doesn't show up in the stat book thing. This is a prime example of it on the last play. And here, just for the back cuts in Orlando we were talking about earlier, he is on Jalen Suggs again. And he's sort of, I think he almost gets beat at one point, but he's great at recovering, especially out in space. And so they switched that screen because earlier on they were hedging these screens, and Timo, the guy with the blonde hair, the Nick Carter looking guy, was picking and popping them to death. And so they started switching. And so that's one of the things that like is underrated about pick and roll versatility. Maybe not underrated, but what's great about pick and roll versatility is that you can just be like, oh, this defense isn't working. Mobley can do that one. Mobley can do that one. You can just kind of go down the book. So they're switching these screens that they weren't doing earlier. And so the fact that they're switching this at all is a good sign for Mobley, but also he's, you know, containing Jalen Suggs as well as he can. And his man in the corner gets back cut, which happened kind of frequently in summer league.
RJ actually. Is it RJ?
Oh, is it RJ? Yeah, he's got the headband. Okay, he has the headband on. Yeah, you can see Suggs.
Yeah,
my mistake.
No worries. The thing that
purposely picked. Yeah.
The thing that really bugs me, or my biggest beef with Mobley as a defender, is that he's really conservative. So like here, he knows that he has a guy who has like a north-south handle, who's pushing towards the paint. Instead of like trying to sell out and try to either like get a piece of the handle or force him to, you know, change direction, something he knows he's uncomfortable with, he just like is fine sliding him towards a, you know, knowing he's not going to probably get to the rim. And it's just like, somebody's in the middle of the floor. Like, this is your chance to force a developing decision maker into making a pretty tough decision. Instead, he kind of just like lets him. And these are the moments I would like him to go all in on an events creation. Like his neutral setting on defense is just like, you know, sort of smother people. And I just want, I want it to go more intense on that. So go ahead.
Oh, why do you think that is? Why do you think he leans more
he just doesn't
towards?
He just doesn't foul.
Like not enough.
No, not even close to enough. I want more foul. Like more fouls from him is as important as
exactly.
Like the two most important stats to me for his rookie year are missed threes and fouls per game.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are the areas I know that he's uncomfortable, and I want to see him try new things after kind of like 2 years of doing roughly the same thing. So I want to throw this to the group. Also want to welcome in Damon. Hello. Thank you for joining us. Thoughts on Mobley Summer League? Certainly not a guy who's going to like, you know, inspire in the way like a Jalen Green Summer League that went well was going to. You know, did it go okay to expectations? Where were you guys at with this?
So I'm kind of curious. I just want to throw this to you guys, you know, because I've been curious about this through watching Mobley through this and the struggles with like clearly seeing him, you know, getting pushed around by guys that are meant to be a position lower than him in theory, you know, getting pushed out, made uncomfortable on the perimeter, not being able to catch the ball in his spots, whatever. When I look at his body, like, so not to keep framing this in Knicks terms, like I
love that you're bringing up Knicks specifically. The specific points are so much better than general skinny guys because like there's a history and like people have, you know, developed out of it. Yeah, to me, I love it.
So there are two guys on the Knicks that have gone very different directions that initially looked like they might have been too skinny for the league, right? One didn't start his career with the Knicks. That's Nerlens Noel. He's still built like a bird. Like he's, you know, skinny legs, skinny arms, skinny everything. He's never going to fill out. You know, no amount of weight training or whatever is going to get him there. There's a part of me that looks at Evan Mobley and sees that same type of body. Almost like you could say like Durant-ish too. You know what I mean? Where like he might get that strength that he needs to a degree, but he's always kind of going to be on the thinner end. And then there's like on another guy in the Knicks that, you know, when I'd been talking to, you know, people that do talent evaluation, whatever, like more at the draft level about Mitch, you know, even during his rookie season, a lot of people had said like, I don't like how, you know, narrow his hips are. His shoulders are pretty broad, but like he doesn't look like he's going to pack on a lot of muscle. And then lo and behold, Mitch is showing himself this offseason like if you listen to him, and it looks every bit like it, he thinks he's gotten up to like 270 pounds at this point, which is significant. I mean, that's great on a 7'1" frame. Like, he's not going to get bumped around by like Andre Drummond anymore, for example, at that size. So where do you guys think Mobley falls on that? Because honestly, when I look at him, to me, he kind of looks more on the Nerlens Noel end of like, I kind of wonder how much room there is for this guy to get to the size of an NBA big. And then like, in that case, like, to some of the points made earlier, is he going to have to play more like a wing? Like, is that why the 3-point attempts are going to be so important for him this season? Like, is he going to be forced to sort of turn himself into more of an off the dribble sort of guy, more so than a guy that can do a little bit more like in the post or whatever? And then how does that affect his defensive projection forward? Because like, I could say like firsthand, unless you're like Nerlens Noel and you could just dare people to come into the lane and just like destroy them, which is basically his strategy of defense. It's like hang back until the last possible second, then just come in with his like perfect God level timing and block the person's shot. You know, unless you have that level of timing on defense, like, I don't think you can get away with being that thin in the NBA as a center. And even for Nerlens, I mean, there were times where it really killed him this past year, like even looking at the Hawks series and everything else, where he just wasn't big enough to hang with a guy like a Clint Capella, who's not even the biggest guy in the NBA, but is certainly strong enough to, you know, push around someone who's not up to weight. So, sorry, long-winded way of saying, like, how do you feel about his physical profile going forward?
Damon, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, how's my sound?
Oh, good.
Okay, cool. So I kind of view Mobley going forward long term. I don't think he's ever going to be like a full-time 5. I think that, like, you look at Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis doesn't want to play 5, and he's much bigger than Mobley is right now, and I think will ever be. I don't think Mobley's going to be as big as Davis. And Davis struggles to play the 5 full-time, and I think that's how it's going to be for Mobley too. Just that, like, even though it may be the best option for him, especially with his awesome defensive instincts, I just don't know that he's ever going to be able to carry that load full-time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, AD is another good example too of a guy that like came into the league like rail thin, but like you could tell pretty early on, like, this dude's going to pack on the muscle. And yeah, even with the amount that he was able to put on, it's still hard for him. Now that just might be, I don't know, maybe that's just like his, maybe he just, you know, he always seems to have injury issues. So maybe it's just that more banging and wear and tear kind of wears his body down quicker, which is the main reason he probably doesn't like playing the 5. But like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of the same reason that LeBron didn't like playing the 4 too. You know, it does, when you're already a high usage player, it wears on your body more to be like that. So it takes like a much sturdier body type, I think, to get through that. But yeah, I think I kind of agree with you too. Like, he's definitely gonna have to learn how to. I think that's, you know, PD, you said that the stat that you're gonna most look for him, or one of them, is the 3-point attempts. I think that'll be important because to me it looks like he's gonna need to learn how to do a lot of perimeter based stuff, you know, and be like a modern 4 that can also like block your shot and hold his own on the inside when needed, but that's not like his primary responsibility. I think that's good. I honestly, I guess my biggest concern is his defensive fit going forward, and like if he's going to be able to hang with 4s, potentially 3s, that sort of thing, that he might get put on defense, you know. And then if he does get switched on to a 5, or if he does have to play situationally like that, if he's going to be able to hold up, you know, to the banging and the, you know, like a guy like Andre Drummond right now, for all of his shortcomings, would just like eat him apart right now. You know, that it would just be not pretty, I don't think. So yeah, it's that's going to be probably the most interesting thing for me with Mobley. Not to say that there isn't like a million different things with him that are interesting, but I'm like really intrigued to see if he's going to be able to pack on muscle at all, or if he's just kind of be like stranded being this skinny kid all his whole career.
I mean,
Yeah, I also just think he provides so much more value on the perimeter, especially offensively, and just being that heliocentric, can run the engine through him and all that.
That's a good point too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's sort of where even the detractors and the beneficiaries net out, which is also why like his rookie year is, I think everybody kind of thinking it's going to look about the same. It's just like how you interpret that year. Like he's going to do a lot of really cool stuff. He's also probably going to get bullied a lot. It's just a matter of how much stuff does he do that is uncomfortable for me. All right, I feel like that's a pretty good primer on Mobley. Thank you. Shall we flow into one Isaac Okoro? Tell me what areas that you were looking at, and let's dive into another Cleveland guy.
Okay, so Isaac Okoro, he's a second year guy, obviously. My thing going into watching him in the summer league games is, you know, he's an example of a non-shooter being a factor on the perimeter. So, you know, how effective can a guy really be and continue to be in the league if he is not a threat at all, you know, from deep? So the numbers, you know, they're there, but 214 three-point attempts and 559 total field goal attempts. So like the percentages, like that's not as important to me because the Cavs offense was what it was. I don't think I need to explain that further. Mm-hmm. But is he going to be able to navigate space when defenders don't really want to pay attention to him? So shooting progress, did we see any flashes of, hey, there's some stuff that's sustainable here? Summer league usage, with the way the roster is constructed as of right now, Colin Sexton, Darius Garland, you know, now Evan Mobley, how many on-ball reps is Okoro actually going to get? So summer league might show us like this is the max, and let's wear him out as a ball handler. Let's give him as many reps as he wants, as he can handle, because if we see tiny flashes here and there, then maybe those tiny flashes will bear out during the course of the season, you know, leveraging the passing. So this one's a question mark to me because when he does have the ball and it's behind the 3-point line, does it matter what his passing looks like? Because if he can't get downhill, because why would a defender play up? They're just going to sit back and dare him to shoot. When he does get there, is he a threat attacking the basket? Yes. But can he make more of it? Because, you know, those two things kind of tie in together. Summer league, the having on-ball reps, the usage, and being able to do something with that passing. Defensively, you know, there's defense is never just you versus your man. It's you, your scheme, things like that, who's behind you. And, you know, I was curious to see what that looks like. And, you know, number 5 is it ties into all of those things. It's what can he do? What can he already do well? Is that going to take another jump? Is the stuff he's not great at going to step up a level to make him a more complete, if lacking, threat? You know, so yeah.
I mean, that last point, it sort of gets to sort of a contradiction of terms where you're like, yeah, we want the most versatile, limited guy possible, and it's like, yeah, I mean, sort of, yes, you want him to have a whole bunch of varied usages. It's just that like some of that depends on shooting, some of it doesn't, and like. You know, I don't think he's ever going to be a guy you just like put on an island. But like, what is the next step? Well, he is a development that like I'm really curious about. It's also one that like the Cleveland roster doesn't necessarily like map to super well right now. But yeah, let's jump into some clips.
Okay, so for this one, loose ball situation, yeah, loose ball situation, and then eventually Okoro is going to end up with the ball. If you could pause it right when he catches it.
Okay, give me a moment. And
So, I mean, one, Cole Anthony has no business doing that like half turn closeout because Okoro is not a threat from deep or hasn't shown himself to be. But this is it's the first play for a reason, not just chronologically, but it is the first play for a reason. It's because he is a non-shooter who is eating up space. So as you can see, like, Cole's feet are shifted, like he's not going to be able to get back in front of Isaac, but right there, his feet are, almost in a split, that classic scissor, this PD, you've coached long enough, like, there are guys who, like, it's instinctive for them to just go like that. And that's what's going to happen here. It's going to be basically a straight line drive. And I mean, I've done so many videos on Dwayne Wade that, like, I know it's blasphemy at this point, but like, if you could play this, like, you just watch him attack, it's the kind of, like, not necessarily reckless attacking, but it's the way he rips the ball, the way he picks it up, the way he leans his body in and shields the ball away. It's that type of stuff that, even if you're not an Okoro optimist, it's good to see what he can do in that limited capacity. Because, like, if the man gets a straight line drive, like, it's going to be something, right?
Yeah. He's been a free throw tank at every level up to this point, and like there is finishing craft, but it's also like throwing himself at the rim has generally been a good strategy. He also like has the widest shoulders in the world, so like it's never going to be a matter of like slinky like Dwayne Wade. But I'm always curious about how he uses his last two steps, because it's just like he has a different physical dimension than many other guys in this sort of stylistic approach.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what people are going to see in these clips, is that when it's not a matter of him getting to the rim, it's a matter of what he does when he gets there. So if you can pause it right when he catches the ball.
Okay.
So right here, I don't necessarily know why, as Bowser2Bowser like called me out for earlier, this Nick Carter looking dude, he's hugging that man at the top of the key, and I don't necessarily understand why. So if you can play it to before he starts driving, play it and then pause it before he starts driving. Yeah, so like right here, what we're gonna see is RJ Hampton is gonna put himself in a position, it looks like, to ice, but the big isn't in position for that. So, it's a defensive miscommunication. It's summer league, whatever.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to. What Okoro is going to do here is he's not going to have to sell that he's rejecting the ball screen, right? Because of the poor defensive coverage, he's again going to be given a straight line to the basket. And, you can say that's not going to happen in regular season games, but I feel like it is, just because, night in, night out, guys' level of attention and their, willingness to continue to always do the right thing, that's going to wane. So Okoro is going to see these angles, and then you can play it here. He's going to attack, and then he's going to go right to left, same hand, same foot finish. I'm a big fan of these, just, and like you said earlier, PD, and like what I was talking about, is it's not a matter of him getting there. It's the different things he does when he gets there that, like, I mean, I would like your thoughts on it. Is like, what exactly is it that he can do? Is it something like he just needs to keep attacking and he'll figure out the craft around there, or question mark?
I mean, the problem is that so much of how he attacks that creates the issues are also why it works so well. Like the reason why he, has had like a 40%, 45% free throw rate at Auburn, I forget what the exact number was, is because like he just throws himself at people. And the problem is like if it's not called a foul, like he's just thrown himself at the rim, and that doesn't necessarily lend itself to craft finishing. So I think that there kind of has to be a second approach when he knows there isn't going to be like contact that he needs to like, be a projectile at. And so I think that it's a matter of sort of like rewiring some of the approaches he has. Like the first one we saw like was never going to be a foul. So instead of approaching it the same way he would, where he's just like, trying to go chest at a defender, trying to, create that physical separation, knocking them back and then finishing. It's okay. Well, I can probably get an inside hand reverse finish on this pretty easily. So I think it's a mentality thing, but the problem is that the mentality that has been so successful is also the one that is presenting its current limitation. He's also just like, he's a very good athlete, but he's not like Ant-Man where he just like will punch this with the left every time.
Right.
It's the difference between like a 90th percentile athlete and like a 97th percentile athlete or whatever.
Right. And I mean, this
Speaking
one's
of-
just fun.
Yeah. My favorite part of this is before we get into the actual analysis, can we just watch Franz on this? Because he knows it the second he throws it. One spin, and there's the second spin. He got it pretty quickly. That what was happening. All right, I just had to note that one.
No, and I mean, it's the summer league. Why jump to deny if you're the defender here? So if you could take it back to right before he makes the move.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, this is fine.
I mean,
you can just
why
play
are you
through.
why are you denying across the court? Like he's so far out of position. Like,
Exactly.
Like he's so far out of position. The ball goes and he like stays in the same spot. Like I get that you don't want him to get a full head of steam, but like come on, dog.
Right. Yeah, and then if you could just rewind it just a smidge, I think it's
that's gonna be a
still
little
in
bit tough.
splits.
I got like 5-second rewinds.
Okay.
I can
That's fine.
try. That's the best I got. I can let me know.
Okay. And then just pause right here. Okay. So this is the thing too. This is my biggest thing about Okoro, and it's not a new thought, but to be able to recognize these situations is a skill in and of itself, right? Like, coach high school basketball, like there are situations where you can teach these things as much as you want, but to be able to see it, and I mean, I think it's a little bit about feel too, is, you get a read on your defender. There's no reason why you should, as a defender, be jumping at this, but if you're a fan of like perfect footwork on the back cut, it's a hard plant with the top foot and then he cuts right and then you can play it. But like, it's plant, go, boom, and then what happens at the rim happens at the rim.
Yeah, a certain way to say it. Is that former Nick legend, Mr. Brastikis? Is that who I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that is Iggy right there. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh yeah, that's Iggy.
So they just got everybody who went to Michigan with the Magic now.
Yeah, that's actually his. Let's see, he got traded to Philly, I think, last year. So they must have picked him up during the offseason here, or off waivers last season or something.
I
don't know.
I follow the NBA, but not know exactly where Ignas Brastikis is at all times. Follow the NBA.
Yeah. I wasn't really keeping up after he left the Knicks either. A lot of people were very upset that he got let go, though. The people that are still clinging to we need to pay attention to the 15th man on the Knicks rationale. Anyway, back to Okoro.
So what do you make of these free throws?
Oh, well, I think I'll leave it to the expert. What do you make of these free throws? That's why I clipped it to include the free throws.
I mean, the thing is that like it looks good, but the thing is it looks nothing like his normal jumper. This is a thing that's really hard to evaluate, and I think why a lot of people got hung up evaluating Beef Stew is that Beef Stew shoots two different shots. Like his catch and shoot jumper and his free throw look insanely different. And it's hard to evaluate, like, the translation between two shots that are not the same. Like, there's no lower body in this. This is like almost Steve Nash levels of no lower body. He's just pushing that with his arms. And the issue with his jumper is the connectivity between the lower body and upper body. So he's removed the issue that's present in his jumper, which is smart because making free throws in actual NBA games matter. But the translation between free throw and three for him is going to be lesser just because he's solved this problem. It's just not going. It solves the 3-point problem on the free throws. It doesn't necessarily solve the problem with the 3-pointer itself.
Yeah, and so okay, on this one, he finishes a lot with his left hand, and I watched as much Cleveland as not as much as like a lot of Cleveland fans, because props to you guys for suffering through that, but the way he attacks, and he almost seems to finish more with his left hand, or maybe that's just it's because of it's easy to remember, but like he's going full speed in transition, great change of pace here and strength to finish with the offhand, and we've already talked about it. It's not so much craft, it's that he's decided what's going to happen is going to happen, and if the defender plays it a different way, then he's left with nowhere to go. But in the open court, especially on the move, on cuts and stuff, like this is where he's probably going to thrive, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's also that, like, look at where he takes his last 2 steps. Like, 1, 2, and he leaps from the dotted line. Like, this isn't a situation where there's counters. It's just like either this is going or it's not. And I think that getting alternate approaches instead of trying to leap from fairly superhuman distances, considering the proximity of another NBA level player, isn't like what I would call like a unique process, but like this is the definition of throwing yourself into contact and trying to figure it out in there.
Right, and it's also too a thing of like the guys I coach, like as young as humanly possible, I try to get them to like jump stop, because like you can see those different reads, and I'm not going to be the jump stop police here, but like if he added a jump stop and a pump, like he could get, I don't want to say much more effective going to the free throw line, because like he's already pretty good at that, but just it will give him more options. It's a chance for him to slow down, and then because if it's not a foul, it's definitely not going to be a foul, and he's got nowhere to go. But if you jump stop, now you have some choices. Maybe he doesn't have the step through in his bag, but a pump and a step through, like that can be there, and like that's going to tie into something else. Another clip I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but you can play this one.
Yeah, I just want to see him with a late euro or a slow euro, just something that lowers the speed down, where he doesn't have to make these full speed worries.
Right. And so, I mean, Bowser2Bowser was talking about this earlier, but he does bail Mobley out here with the back cut. And okay, so what I did when I was looking through this clip is like, I zoomed in, super slow-mo, everything like that. What happens here is the weirdest thing. He's going to, when he catches the ball, he's going to like get his hand on the glass, but here's the weird thing: the ball never touches glass. His hand is in the way, so it like it's just on the rim, and I don't know what that is. Maybe it's just he cut not expecting the pass, although if I'm him, like I'm always expecting the pass on those cuts. I don't necessarily know if this was like he was just tired, a minute's
You're
thing.
Right. He does he slaps glass doing a finger roll, like with the back of his hand. This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just dunk this.
I know. That's exactly what I was thinking too. And it's again, coach high school basketball, it's just like if you're gonna touch the backboard, it's better be a make, because like, man, does it look bad that it's a miss. Yeah, it's just weird stuff. Okay, so for this one, it's I think it's the only pass I have on these clips. So he's going to tack here, and in drop cover, like every team is going to drop on him. Like I don't or switch and then just back all the way up. So I sent you a clip that like is kind. Oh, okay, great. I'll just wait on it then. Yeah, okay. So Okoro is gonna like get downhill here, and this is an ill-advised pass for a number of reasons. So like, yeah, that's a great place to pause it. And so it's just like, let's say this pass gets through. Is the big going to be able to finish there? Yeah, if it's Jared Allen, sure, but like that's not the best pass there, and the bounce pass is not my way to go. And maybe it's because I'm so spoiled, because like this is what I was taught, and this is the play you're gonna show influenced me so much as a player, to the point that like I coach and teach this. You can jump stop here, and you can pump fake, and then you can scoop it, and then you can play it, because I want people to see this. But like this is the pass that I teach.
Yeah. Also, this pass being one-handed is bad. Just like full stop.
It's not.
I thought that it was like a 2 that he kind of slipped, but no, it's like he tries to throw it around a corner. Yeah, that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Yeah. So it's this pass right here. It's sort of, if you are perfectly in line with another player, you pump fake that, and now you have the seam to scoop it through. You know, it's that. And if like Kobe's is, I don't know, is that a one-hand pass or a two-hand pass? But you know, if you're scooping it like that, it doesn't really matter if it's a one-hander or two-hander. But like the bounce is never gonna get through, or even if the bounce gets through in that situation, there's minimal advantage. This is a way to drop off.
Yeah. The ability to manipulate hands, where like you just push them high to throw low. Again, he lifts all the hands up, then throws underneath them. Like Dwight still gets a relatively close arm, but you know that's to be expected with that level of defender. The thing that really jumps out to me, the difference between the two of them, is like Isaac doesn't really slow down. Like he kind of goes to jail and then he reattacks. He's still going full speed when he throws this. If he had inverted that, gone all the way around the corner, then slowed down here, this pass maybe works. I think that the thing, like, yes, framing hands is like ultra important, and you know this would be a much more open window if he had framed the drop coverage. But it's also that like he is very similar to like what Cairo was in college, where he makes his decisions at full speed and full speed only. And when you slow him down, he doesn't make the same quality of decisions facing like a more set defense than he does reading a defense on the fly.
Yeah, and even like that you were talking about, if he works on like a delayed euro or anything like that, like if he gets that here, that forces him to sort of change speeds, and you know it forces him to slow down, and then other angles present themselves in that situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and this one is a pain, because you know, from a set perspective, it's a UCLA into a zipper cut, which is, yeah. So if you could pause right here. So, you know, UCLA action here, the ball is on the wing. He's going to get a back screen, and like, that's fine. And then you can play it. And then the weird thing is like, you know, nothing's going to come of this. I don't know what the point of it was.
I think it's
and then
supposed
you
to
can
be
play
for
it.
a post up. Like, I think that the idea is that like you're trying to see if you get like a mismatch or something, like on the opportunity that like it's like, I don't know. Maybe if the guard fights over it, I won't lie to you. I really don't like it. I really don't like it. I'm just trying to events. Like I guess having Isaac Curl on the low block in theory is a mismatch against many switches or, you know, late guards. Sure. But like I think there's better ways of doing that.
Yeah. And then, but so like the weird thing is so there's nothing there, right? And so they just go back. So it's whatever advantage like may or may not have been there is nullified. So here's the thing, and you can pause it anywhere here. So not exactly, I heard this on your other stream, screen dynamism here.
Yeah.
Because it's Mobley. But like, so this is Summer League. I get it. Truly terrible hedge.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. So the split, and you don't play it yet, but like the split is gonna look so great. But here's my thing, and this is the thing with Okoro. It's one thing to recognize the terrible hedge, and it's one thing to think, oh, I can split this. But it's another thing to actually be able to do it. And I mean, that's what Okoro does here, and you can play it. Before we talk about terrible hedge, this screen is insane. Yeah. It was one of those things where I clipped it, I saw it, and I was like, oh, that's a nice split. Why did that happen? Oh, that's a weird hedge. Okay. And I watch it more and more, and it's just like, what on earth is that screen?
Yeah, and, I mean, this Euro at the end is like nothing. Like it's just 2 steps and he bails his way out with him in air acrobatics. Like he could have just walked by this dude if he did the 2 steps inverted, right,
Yep.
left, and then like gymnastics finish. Like it doesn't have to be this hard. I get that he's coming off a hedge and his weight isn't underneath, but like the more random a situation where he has to find a creative solution, the worse he is if one of his favorites is taken away. Like he can't go up strong here. They call it charge. Is that what you're seeing here too after the head or after the split?
Yeah. And now it's a little more, it's framed by what you were talking about earlier, is that he makes his decisions at full speed. And so it doesn't really matter what else is going to be happening in this situation. And it's just like I talked about earlier, like there's like, I would love it if he just sat and like watched a whole bunch of Dwayne Wade film, because, Wade is also as outstanding a cutter as has played the game, right? And he did it with a relatively weak outside jumper. So the craft around the basket, the footwork, the making decisions and manipulating, stuff like that. If he could learn a little bit of Dwayne Wade stuff, that'd be super great, because I really don't know if he knows what he's going to do if they take the options away. No, in fact, he doesn't know what he's going to do. We've already talked about that.
I think he goes in with 2 ideas, and when he has to go to option 3, there's just not that much there.
Yeah. And so for this one, this is the only defense clip, but he has the ability to, and this is, Wagner, like in a pinch, like he can size up, size down, I guess, but he really gets bailed out here with this goaltending call. What I like about this is the way he works to contest this. Like he's always moving his feet, and like, again, that's as close to a change of pace thing as we'll see. Is he's going 60 miles an hour, he'll shift to 50, and then he'll go 70, right? Is that skip step thing he does?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like an overcross, where he's like kind of selling the hard middle to like cross high back. I mean, it's not like specifically a Tony Parker cross, because he doesn't sort of like bake it in the middle of his body, but like that hard sell to go back. I mean, the thing with him is that like he was sold as like an island defender. That's never what he was. He's just like a really good scheme defender who will just hold people to their really bad choices. So like this to me is like the Isaac Okoro obsession. It's like, you've made a bad choice, you now have to live with it. Like he just doesn't bail people out. And then we just don't see that. Like on the other end, we have like some creativity, but after this moment, then the final 2 steps, again, just not a lot of variance if something went wrong there.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the weird thing about that is like, it's not a weird thing. Suggs grabs the rim here, and that's why it was called a goaltend, right? Because he jumps up to swat the shot, and then he touches the rim on the way up. But like, that's not a great shot. Like, that's not going to go in. Like, no matter what angle of spin you're telling me he put on the ball, and it's not something that I think is like, it's not a great decision from him. And I mean, it kind of feels to me like Okoro and Mobley like could give and take a little bit from each other in that sense. Is that like Mobley is good with, as you talked about, and like Alex talked about, is like, he's conservative. He's not really going to make guys make decisions. He's just like, all right, I'm good. Like, you do what you're gonna do, and I'm gonna be big, and I'm gonna try and stop it. Instead of what Okoro is doing is like, I've forced you into a position where now you're done. Like, I mean, like, again, not to relate everything back to like high school coaching or whatever, but like making guys make decisions as a defender, being like being proactive in that way as opposed to reactive. Like it has its pros and cons, but like guys who are more aggressive and proactive, I like a lot better because like you can always dial that back versus like having to ratchet guys up. Getting guys to like do certain things at a certain level of aggressiveness, like that's much harder, I think.
Yeah, they're both like pretty difficult development cases because what they do has like the reason their flaw is their strength, like full stop. And those are always some of the hardest guys to develop. You know, we talked a little bit about it yesterday with Josh Christopher. It's like he got here because of those skills, and that's what's going to limit him from taking the next step. Like it's not quite as strong with these two, but they both need variance in their games. Excited to see how this year goes with like knowing that the two guards are most likely going to have the ball in their hands all the time, and there's going to be more defined roles from them. When that's kind of the opposite of what I want developmentally. Thoughts from the group on what to take from as it grows to summer league games, or just developing guys who maybe don't have as much natural creativity or wanting to try stuff on a regular basis.
Yeah, so one thing I was thinking about big with these clips that we watched, and it relates back to what you were talking about with it being a better thing when a guy is too aggressive and you can bring it back a little bit, is he just needs so much more pacing to his game with the ball especially. And I think he has a little bit of that Ja Morant syndrome where he just makes everything harder in the air at the rim than it has to be. There are just ways for you to make yourself more balanced in position to have a better attempt at the rim. And so I think those two areas are the biggest things for me with Okoro.
How much do you guys think his lack of length affects how his finishes are? Like, do you think that he would maybe go up a little stronger and try a little less of the acrobat stuff if he were like, he's what, like 6'6" with a 6'7" wingspan or something like that? Like,
I think he's like
not particularly
+3 or +4.
Yeah, it's like 6'5", 6'8", I think.
Okay, I mean that's still like for a wing that's not the longest. I mean, do you think that if he had more of the like 6'9", 6'10" wingspan, that he might be a little more willing to kind of extend himself more rather than, because it seemed like he definitely doesn't shy away from contact because he's like a bowling ball, but he does kind of go a little crazy with the acrobatics, like you guys noted a couple times in the clips there. Like, is there a reason for that, or is it just that he's like a showman? Like, or do you think it has something to do with his mentality based off his physical profile?
I think it's just wanting contact. I think it's just that like that's what's been so successful to this point, the ability to really like knock defenders back. And a lot of times, like when he does his acrobatic finish, it's because he hunted contact that missed. Like he wanted to hit somebody in air, and they kind of like, he didn't get chest or shoulder. He kind of like, they glanced off of him, and then he's like, okay, well now I have to, double clutch or something. Which is sort of like I would say his two general finishing styles are like going up as strong as possible, or trying to self-organize once that if that doesn't go as planned. But I think that it wouldn't really matter if he was longer. We would just be having these conversations later because he'd be more successful. Like sort of like Keldon to a degree, where it's like, like we're eventually going to have some of the stuff with Keldon. Keldon can play a little bit slower, but Keldon is a better half-court athlete and longer. But like there are, once you play like playoff basketball, the way that Keldon finishes is going to have some issues. So I think that we're just having these conversations a touch earlier because of his length, but the approach or some of the developmental backlash from this, like the overall goodness of his approach is, I think, length agnostic.
Yeah, and I think too, it's that it's that thing of like, this is what got you to the league. Like you're very, very good at it, and like now he at no point did he ever have to have a second gear or to be able to slow down or jump stop or all of that stuff, especially in the lane. And PD said this, like what he hunts contact, and so like it's just about figuring out what happens when he gets there. But like, this is not, exclusively about him. It's like a lot of people in the NBA, it takes a while for them to have to adjust. And like my concern in like his context, let's say, is like, these are going to continue to be bad habits, and he's not going to, because he's not going to have the on-ball reps that he had in summer league. And like, unless he plays summer league as a third-year player next year, like he's not going to get that level of this high of a usage or those reps again. So like now,
we say that high of a usage, or like it wasn't 21. Like I know he made some passing grades, but like he's just not usage scalable in the way that you like kind of want from a guy in the summer league. Where like we want you to explore your game, and it's just not. To me, more than anything, like I don't think summer league really benefits him in that way. It's more like going to play, structured games, doing more, doing more skills training. Like that's the stuff I'm really excited to see from him. Like this, it's like, yeah, I know you can just like bully people who are not built like you.
Right. And so like PD, like, so you talked about this with Mobley, is like his fouls and his 3-point attempts, even the misses. Like if you had to boil it down, like what are two things you would look for, like statistically, for Okoro throughout this next season?
Yeah, I actually kind of want to hear this from everybody. I can go last. But just go around and say the two, like one or two things. It doesn't have to be two. I mean, I think that it's pretty easy to say one. If you want to, but just the thing that would be a sign that Isaac Okoro had a positive year or a positive developmental year. Don't everybody go at once.
Should I throw it to? Let's go. I mean, Bowser2Bowser. Like you also watched a bunch of Cavs games, so like not to throw you under the like. Let's have you go first, and then Alex or Damon, like whichever one of you guys want to jump in after that.
So are we going stats? Like what stat is a good indicator?
You can interpret this however you want.
Because one of the things I'm interested in with Okoro is his offensive role going forward, and partially it's like he did some on-ball stuff at Auburn. Like they made him do like they love doing the baseline out of bounds play where they would give him the ball and kind of run flex. So they give him the ball and he would just do bowling ball. Like often he would get guarded by the bigger guy, like the 6'9" power forward from Vanderbilt and stuff like that. And he would bowling ball his way in, but also he was like one of the better playmakers. And so if you have Garland and you have Sexton and now you have Mobley, one of the things I wonder with him is he's not a good shooter. So is he only going to do cut? Like is a shot going to develop? And then is he just going to be a spot up shooter? Right. Like is he, can he find a role on offense where he can channel his strengths and not just be a complementary player? And so I'll be interested in maybe his at rim finishing, especially the assisted to unassisted ratio. Is he just doing off ball? Because he's a good off ball cutter. It has been for years. But like, can he expand beyond that? Because his shooting needs to improve. Hopefully it does. That's a long-term goal. But especially like, can he be a good at-rim finisher? Can he get there even with the ball in his hands, not just, through assisted cuts, stuff like that. So that's one of the things I'm most curious offensively is sort of the at-rim finishing and especially the breakdown of assisted, unassisted.
Yeah, that was definitely going to be one of mine, was unassisted mix the rim. Just like what volume it is, because also, fouls don't go into that. So just want to see how that number looks. Anybody else have a number or something that jumps out before we move on?
Yeah, I got one. Just in tandem, kind of the free throw percentage improvement, hopefully improvement, alongside total shot attempts away from the rim. Just because I think that, like we talked about how the form looks totally different from his jump shot. I think if we see more of a volume of away from the basket alongside the potentially improved free throw percentages, that would be a good thing to see in tandem.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really have too much more to add honestly, because I'd be lying if I said I watched a ton of Okoro this year. But I will just say, like, just looking through like his basketball reference and stuff, like 71.5% of his baskets were assisted last year, according to them, which kind of just, again, I'd be curious too to see, is he going to be able to do more than just be a guy that gets fed the ball? Like, I remember I'd be lying if I said that I scouted him like mega heavily, but he was definitely a guy that I did some homework on last year because he was potentially, in the Knicks range in the draft. And like, I remember hearing from a lot of people, PD, I think you probably one of them, like on Locked On Knicks, like that he had some playmaking juice like in high school and some in college, and definitely was tasked with more creation and stuff. So yeah, I'd be intrigued too to see. And not to make everything about the Knicks, but like what you were saying, PD, about you want to see different stuff in summer league. Like that was one thing I liked about what they did in summer league this year was like, and we're not going to be talking about them, but Quickly and Toppin, like they threw them out there and they put them in very different roles than probably what they're going to be playing in the NBA this year, and definitely different than what they played in their rookie years, which was Emmanuel Quickly. It was like, you're our primary initiator. You're out here. You're going to be the point guard. You're going to be setting everybody up. And like, he showed some admirable growth there. And like Toppin was tasked with basically being like their number one option on offense and creating stuff from the wing and stuff like that, which almost makes you think that they're thinking about experimenting, like maybe trying to get him super giant jumbo lineups with like, Randall and Mitchell Robinson or something. So, yeah, I guess the thing would just be coaches challenging Okoro to do more and maybe him challenging himself to try more stuff, especially because I don't think that anyone in Cleveland expects this to be a year where they're going to have to like keep the margins tight and, be trying to compete for a playoff spot or something. So, I think that it would just be trying to do some more stuff with the ball in his hands. It would probably be the thing that I would look at if I was watching him consistently.
All right, let's on that note, which I feel like is some guys you get a glance on, like if you see them twice, you've kind of seen everything. Like, not that they don't have more in the bag, but like you get the gist of the experience very quickly. And Okoro is one of those. Let's slide over to you now and talk about the areas of attention for Quentin Grimes.
I'm not like a draft guy or like a talent eval guy for like high school, college, whatever. Like I do the Knicks mostly. And then like for 2 months of a year, I or maybe 3 months, whatever. Last year it was like 6 months. I spent some time getting to know prospects, and like cramming, like I'm trying to get ready for like a final exam that I didn't go to class for most of the year. So this year, like I honestly came in knowing pretty little about Grimes going into summer league. So I guess I'm kind of approaching this from a different angle than you guys, where you guys came in like having all these things that you already knew about these players and then trying to like spot things that they've worked on or whatever. I came in with like a very rudimentary understanding of Grimes because like where the Knicks were drafting, it was supposed to be 19 and 21. I did tons of homework on like Sharif Cooper, Jalen Johnson, like Springer, Garuba, Isaiah Jackson, Trey Murphy, Bones Highland, whatever. Also looked at like some trade up guys because the Knicks were like very much, in trade up modes, like Duarte, Kispert, Book Night, whatever. So I found myself like when they drafted Grimes, I was like, man, I've heard the name, but like I don't really know him that well. So then I did even more quick homework on him of like, okay, what do I who is this guy? What does he do? What's his role? What's he going to do for the Knicks? By and large, like the feedback and stuff that I saw is mostly like 3-and-D, and I'm like, all right, that makes a lot of sense, especially once the Knicks then let Reggie Bullock go in free agency. I'm like, okay, this pick makes a ton of sense now to me based off what they did in free agency and everything. And the fact that they let Reggie Bullock go, I think that this is a guy that they view as someone that could do many of the similar things that he did eventually down the line, especially when retaining a guy like Alec Burks instead of Bullock. That made a pretty clear distinction of what they think Grimes can do. So my sort of things that I wanted to look at were how is he going to do with the threes and the Ds, and how is he going to do with the other stuff? So the first thing is the shooting projection. So like, how real is the shot? He shot over 40% from three in college. I think that's the first thing for him, and it was definitely like the first thing for him in summer league too, that he needed that 3-pointer to start going in, and then all of a sudden all the other stuff started coming out. Like, I think he just really, they probably told him too, like, fire away as much as you need to get this range, because we want you to like get a feel for what NBA threes are going to be like. And the first few games were ugly, and the last few games were gorgeous, and like his shooting form looks like really good to me. Like, I think that it's very quick, very smooth. I enjoy watching him shoot the basketball, so I think it's for real. Like,
to me, that's not like a question of whether it's real or not. He's just a guy who's like, I don't want to say like totally streaky, but he does have like a little bit of cold stretches. But yeah, I don't think that there's like I don't think that there's a world where he's like, where he basically was a shooter except for that year at Kansas. Other than that, it's pretty bona fide.
Yeah. So my general impression was, yes, I do think, and we'll see some of the shots in the clips. But next was like, does the defense live up to the billing, right? Because again, he's, I think by all accounts, sort of being brought in to be a Reggie Bullock replacement, if not right away, then eventually, as far as just a really good defender, can play some man-on-man defense, plays really good team defense as well. I mean, Reggie Bullock, for all of his flaws on offense, was an awesome defender. Like, they tasked him with guarding the best player on the opposing team a lot of times. Now, I think there's actually another guy that they drafted in Deuce McBride who might fill that role better, if you're talking about like bottling up a Trae Young or something like that. But I do think that Grimes, based off watching him in summer league, he had a few moments where he fell asleep, but I do think that he could do a little bit of both. I think he's probably better as a team defender. Like, he seemed really good at communicating and, filling the spaces he needs to be in. The one thing which I'll note in some of the clips is like, his head is like always moving. Like, he's never just like ball watching. He's always looking back, looking, left, right, in front of him. Like, he's always trying to see what's going on around him. So I really like, yeah. So I loved his defensive ability, and that was something I was definitely looking for. The other thing, handling creation juice on there, like, that was the thing. That's what's going to make the difference of, is he Reggie Bullock or is he something better? Because Reggie Bullock was very much exposed in the playoffs as not a guy that you can have playing, 35, 40 minutes in a playoff game. And he got schemed out, basically, is what happened. Like, it got exposed to, like, you need basically all 5 positions, or at least 4 out of 5, to be able to credibly handle the ball, or else if you have a starting like 2-3 that you have out there that you're basically just stranding on the perimeter all the time, expecting for kick out shots, they're going to just throw Trae Young on him. And then when he gets the ball and he can't dribble, like, literally Trae Young can bottle him up, which Trae Young doesn't bottle anybody up if you have even the smallest bit of creation ability in you. So that's what I was looking for, that from Grimes. Like, can he just do some basic stuff? Like, can he dribble? Can he get around somebody a little bit? Can he like sort of, get by somebody and drive? Can he use a screen well and like generate enough, propulsion off that screen to like start getting downhill towards the hoop? And I think in general, the answer was yes. I think his ball handling is a little spotty, which again, it'll show up in the clips in a minute, but he can handle the ball some. Like, if you put Trae Young on him, he'll be able to do something. He'll be able to make Trae Young pay a little bit, especially more than like Reggie Bullock could. The other thing, can he finish around the hoop? His college numbers, like looking at shooting charts, said he was okay at it. It seemed like about, I think it was like 60% was his number roughly, which is like not great, but not the worst in the world. He shot like 40% overall from 2. And it seems like his mid-range game is not fantastic, though I will, PD, I have one clip in there that I kind of want to like ask your opinion on, similar to the Okoro free throw clip. But, he only drew 1.5 free throws per game during summer league, despite being a pretty focal point of the offense. So, like, I don't think he necessarily like dances around contact or anything. Like, it's not like he's afraid of it, but I just don't think he seeks getting to the hoop as like a super important thing, unless it's in transition, which I think he was really good at. But I think that there's a potential there that he could be pretty decent around the hoop, and he carries himself in a strong sort of way that in some ways reminds me of RJ Barrett on the Knicks. So TBD, but I think there is maybe something there for the future. And then lastly, the big thing, with the X's and O's utility, like, and I mean, I feel like very inferior coming after two guys that clearly are very involved in X's and O's and coaching and everything else. I'm not a huge X's and O's guy, but I did just want to kind of get an idea for how the Knicks were going to use him. Unlike with OB and IQ, where they sort of threw them in uncomfortable situations and tried to sort of mold them in a different way, I think that the Knicks Summer League staff with McBride and with Grimes essentially were trying to get them comfortable and try them out for their NBA roles. Like Grimes was not being asked to initiate a lot or anything like that. He wasn't being taken out of his comfort zone. Even McBride didn't do a ton of initiation despite nominally being a point guard. I think they just wanted to get them comfortable with the NBA game. But I wanted to see sort of like, what sort of plays are they setting him up for? Are they setting him up strictly for spot up opportunities? Is he going to be cutting? Is he going to be, is he going to get the ball and, sort of get a quick little screen to get going downhill towards the basket? That's a very RJ Barrett thing where he's still not fantastic at actually, I won't even say not fantastic. He's really not that good at breaking down guys one-on-one yet. And it's something that he's working on, but that'll hopefully come with time. So are they going to set him up in situations that can get him to the rim where I don't think he's too bad? But anyway, that's
also one that I'm really excited because in your notes, we talked about whose plays they ran for him, and I think that there's going to be a lot of conversation about that as we go. So yeah, first we got a jumper.
Yeah. So first thing, this is a long one, but it's a 9-0 run that Grimes put together himself. So I thought it was really cool because he highlighted 3 very different types of shot. This is a catch and shoot from like 3 feet behind the 3-point line. Now, we don't even have to stop this one. We could just kind of power through. But like early on in the summer league, he was kind of struggling to even, it seemed like, get the rim, from NBA range. And actually, you could stop real quick before we get to that. I'll just like get this point out. And then, so like Prez, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. Yes. One of the writers for my site. I know you are, PD. But like he had noted that in like a Twitter conversation that Grimes's release is kind of high, and that in general he had noticed from looking at guys coming out of college and whatever, that guys that have sort of that higher release, it can sometimes be harder making that adjustment to the NBA range because it's just harder to get that projection. Like you're shooting more of like a nice rainbow. And so then you got to get that extra, however many feet of projection going onto that shot to then make it go in. And that sort of looked like it was showing through those first few games. And I was thinking, oh, like this, maybe things are going to be a little rough for Grimes this year. And then the final like 2-3 games, all of a sudden it just clicked and he was just like, yep, I got this now. Like I figured out NBA 3-point range. And then by the last game, he's shooting a shot like that, which is just like, I mean, that's like where Quickly was shooting shots from last year. Which
I think he was like 19 for 33 in his last 3 summer league games from 3, which is both a number of attempts and a nice number from 3.
Yeah. So we'll look at this one now. So this is the second one that he did, and this is another drawing from Quickly sort of thing. They must have been hanging out a lot in practice, but so he grabs the defensive board here in a sec. And first off, I mean, the playmaking was nice to me, or that not the playmaking so much, but the dribbling ability. Like, boom, nice little behind the back, a little through the legs. I mean, it's not like the cleanest ever. It looks like he needs to kind of tighten that, but it's nice to see him at least try it. Not that Sharif was even really paying attention at that time. But then, Jericho sets like a little fake screen there. He gets around it. Sharif follows him and then does the very Quickly thing, leans into him, gets that bucket there, fights through the contact and keeps his release going despite kind of. He doesn't really lean forward much usually, but he's kind of like leaning forward there a little bit and got it off cleanly. And that was pretty sweet. And I left the replays in there because it was fun to watch. But anyway, so he gets through all this. takes his free throw and misses it for the 4-point play. And then in a sec, we'll see that the rebound comes out, and then he gets one last type of attempt here, which is
I think I cut the first part of the free throw.
Oh, that's okay. That's fine. The free throw wasn't important. Boom. You just did a little casual, like James Harden-esque double step back. Okay, I'll take that. Another thing that I hadn't really seen from him prior to that, and something that we saw quickly do a bunch. I mean, I literally think that they must have been spending tons and tons of time together. But really, if we just want to pause there before we get into the next ones, but those 3 shots, like, it's just such a diverse diet of 3-pointers to bust out right at the beginning of a game like that and go on like literally a personal 9-0 run. I just thought it was really impressive. I didn't think there was any other way that I could have started this clip show from that game than showing all 3 of those buckets, because I thought they were awesome. The second one here, so this is going to be Grimes on D. I might have screwed up and cut this clip a little too soon, but I guess we'll see. But so we'll see him. He's up there in the corner there. The thing that stood out to me, and it's good that I didn't clip it too early for that at least, is he sees, so Obi is coming down here, and then Obi starts to just kind of man the middle. Grimes has the awareness once the ball starts coming in, once the ball handler starts coming in, to seal off Obi's man and keep an eye on him. Now, what you're not going to see is that after he did that and stopped what probably could have been like an alley-oop, he then also was still keeping his head on a swivel and managed to get back out to his man as well, although it didn't end up going to him. But I like the awareness there. And mostly, like, I guess the thing that I was paying attention to, and maybe I'm still just so easily impressed after having so many years of like bad defense on the Knicks, is that he's very good at keeping his head up. He's very good at being, aware of where he needs to be. And there's another clip where there's just sort of this unspoken thing between him and Deuce that, like, it's these 2 guys. And granted, they were both amazing on defense, so it's not like this is just a Grimes thing, but those 2 guys, like, playing together for the first time with, I don't know, whatever, like 6 days worth of practice prior to playing 6 games, and this is their 6th of 6 games, already have this, like, unspoken communication between them of, like, okay, yeah, like, if these guys switch out here, we're not even gonna pretend like we're sticking with our men. Like, we're just gonna switch because we know that that's what we want to do. It's, I think, pretty cool. And as someone who watched the Knicks for a long time, it's
drafting an adult on defense is always really wonderful. Like, oh, you already know what to do. Like, yeah,
it's really nice.
You communicate. I love this.
Yes, exactly. So in this one, you'll see he's D'ing up Sharif on the edge here. So we can we'll just walk it through as it's going slow. But, like, he keeps his eye on Sharif the whole time, and this is that switch with him and Deuce, right? Like, I don't know who the other guy was that Sharif is switching places with there, but they don't even make a second thought of it. Like, Grimes just like, yeah, I've got Sharif now. Keeps his eye on him and watches the ball, but is also paying attention to where Sharif is going, which is great. And then as the ball is coming out to Sharif, boom, like, immediately he's right there. Now, the thing that I really, if you want to stop, the thing that I really like is that Sharif tries like a rip through. He's trying to generate, maybe even like in revenge, sort of. He's like trying to generate something similar to what Grimes just did to him, and maybe get a foul call on this 3-point attempt. And it helps that Grimes is probably like 6 inches, 7 inches taller than him, to be able to bottle him up. But, like, he controls himself, and that's, he's not too handsy. And that's something that even, like, so Knicks fans loved Frank Ntilikina, who was also a really talented defender in his own right. But Frank sometimes in situations like this will gamble a little bit, and get called for a stupid foul, by trying to reach in and get the ball or whatever. Grimes, like, straight up is just like, I don't need to do anything to Sharif here. Like, I just need to stay in front of him and make sure that he doesn't get this rip through and that he doesn't get this shot. So then if you want to, like, play it, you can see, like, he just keeps himself in front of him, just goes straight up with it. I think catches a piece of the ball as it's going up, and it's just a really clean defensive possession. So I really enjoyed that one. This one is him in transition. Now, this is the one I try not to be everything positive, although I really loved a lot of what I saw from him, especially in this game. But this one, we'll see on the slow-mo. Like, he gets out in transition. The handle's a little sloppy, and I think this is where it kind of shows. Like, his handle is not the tightest. Like, he's getting through two defenders there.
It's also very susceptible at speed. Like that's the other thing is like everybody's handle works differently in terms of like what areas it has strengths and weaknesses. When he goes full speed, that's when the problems tend to come out.
Yeah, like he's dribbling it way far in front of his body there, and you can see that he has to kind of like stumble back into his dribble, like going forward. And so yeah, he doesn't translate super great to dribbling at speed. I think he's really good in transition as a guy that's receiving a pass, but going at speed like that. Now, if we want to go back like real quick to where he kind of gets into the lane there. Now, right here, if you want to stop. So like right as he's making that pass, right? What I would like to see there, and like this is something that he would have to work on, I guess, is like he's got two defenders there. They're doing a pretty credible job of staying in front of him, but like rather than throwing it to MJ Walker over here, who's in the corner, doesn't like. There's no real easy way to get that pass over because 16. I don't know who 16 is, to be completely honest, but 16 is like right there, and all it takes is like half a look to realize that 16 is waiting there. I don't like that pass to try to swing it over there. I would have rathered him like, and this isn't him. Again, I don't think that he fears contact or anything, but I think he probably doubted his abilities to make this happen, and it's something he'll probably have to work on. But like, I would have preferred he gather the ball there and just try to like get in, maybe take a little euro and then just try to get to the hoop in some way and draw a foul. I just don't really see trying to make that kick out to the side there when there's clearly a defender there, and then it gets knocked out of bounds.
Yeah, it's just not enough penetration. Like it's not threatening a defense enough, and whenever you underpenetrate, you get situations like this. I mean, again, it comes with the handle difficulties. It comes with some of the like the finishing stuff, which I think is all fruit in the same tree. But yeah, definitely a unified and related issue in my mind with how he has on-ball utility.
Yeah. So and then. Literally the clock hadn't even moved yet, and we get an opportunity to see him get downhill and like actually get some contact here. So like, cool. That was awesome. So pretty simple, just a quick handoff, and then he takes it all the way in, goes into Sharif, like borderline almost a charge there, but
It's
all in all, I
charge.
just liked.
No, it
What's that?
They call it an and one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm into it. Like, I like that he took the opportunity here to get around and get into the lane and just like go right into the contact and finish through it. And he finishes through it. Now, again, it's Sharif Cooper. So like literally you're not going to find anyone smaller in the NBA than Sharif Cooper to have to finish over. So he's going to have to get a little more crafty. Like I do notice if you look at how he's like attempting the shot when we get in there, I think that, preferably you would want him to get into extending a little sooner, because if he's going over a bigger defender, they might still, where he was bringing the ball like by his face there, I think he could still get blocked or stripped or something.
Yeah, or go with the left hand at all. I mean, to me, the Coach Evin, would you get yelled at if you went under on the screen after a guy hit 3 threes in a variety of circumstances?
Big yeah. Big yeah.
Yeah, but an unwise path as a defender, and they just like botch this. Like they go under and then they switch and then they unswitch, which is just wonderful stuff. But I mean, I think that you see the limitations on his slither. You see that like he could have taken this even farther on that second step. He's not a guy who has a ton of fluidity. Like really rangy steps. Like obviously a more built, like a stronger too. To me, like running this kind of like Chicago stuff is all like this is a quickly playbook that they're running for him more than RJ stuff, because like you're just trying to limit the amount of decisions that are made more than getting him. Like with RJ, you want to get him downhill. Like with quickly, you don't want him to make decisions. You want to make it to be pretty clear. Like if they go under, you pull. If they get caught, you go to the rim.
Yeah. So this next clip, I mean, this one he actually doesn't touch the ball at all. I just really enjoyed. So he knows where to go. He knows the motions to take. I called this one. This was like getting your teammate grade up in 2K, like filling your spots well. Basically, starts on the wing. Nothing develops there. He makes a good cut, and honestly, like if you go back, like I think he probably could have been found there if Deuce was kind of looking for him more.
Yeah,
and he wasn't really looking for that. Plus, it got really crowded there with that double screen up top. But then immediately finds his way over to the corner And then once again, pretty wide open. Like Obi draws in Grimes' defender pretty well. It's on Obi to make that pass at that point. And this one, I do think, like, unlike the Grimes one I was just kind of hating on a minute ago, where he had like 2 defenders in front of him, like Obi had the entire defense within like 5 feet of him on this possession, and Grimes was like perfectly open in the corner. So I like the way that he approached that, and just all in all, it worked his way through that whole thing. So moving to this one. Now, this is the one that I wanted to ask you about, PD. So this is the mid-range pull-up here. Now, I'm curious. I think he uses the Jericho screen well, and that was, speaking of great screens, Jericho set like 1 million great screens during Summer League. What's your opinion on his mid-range game? Like, I think that he gets a little more up with his shot on the mid-range, which I think is natural. How do you feel about the quickness of his release and like his ability to do that long term? Because Gavin and I, my co-host on my podcast, had some discussions about that, where we were talking about how
I just don't want him ever taking the shot ever.
Yeah,
like, ever. This should be a hard pound and a step back, or just a sidestep as soon as the defender gets caught. Like, this is such a big defensive win to get this shot out of Grimes. Like, it's a 40% shooter. What are we doing here? Like, this defender is now going to just drop every single time. You're going to walk into like 21 footers. Like, I think it's fine. It's just that the process scares me, because he can fall in love with like reasonable shots instead of hunting the stuff he does best.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely. You pause there real quick, because I'm gonna get into it. But yeah, I think I agree with you there. Like, I don't think that's a shot that I would love for him to be taking, and there is like questionable utility there. Like, if he should even ever look for that. I don't think that he's really going to be in a situation in the NBA, short of a developmental leap, where he's going to use that a ton. But I was kind of just curious, like, from a thought experiment perspective, it would work.
It looks fine. It's just like, I don't think his handle is going to require him taking off the triple, mid-rangers. And like, I think that it's just like, because he's not a great passer or a great decision maker, churning multiple reads, how much do you want him to be into situations where he's reading a dropping defender? It's like, no, just take the threes. Like, and then when they switch the coverage, then you can get downhill. I just think that that system allows the worst parts of his game to be flourished, in terms of being allowed to be good into handling the ball more.
So this next clip here, this is a negative one. Like, I think he gets kind of caught sleeping here. This is one of the only times where he seemed to have like a lapse. And if this was an NBA player with a jump shot that caught that ball, like, he would have been screwed. I think he got caught in no man's land. He was allowed some time to recover by the fact that, like, the point guard didn't get the ball over to his man quick enough, and then his man paused, doubted himself, didn't take the shot. Like, if you want to go back real quick to the beginning of the slow-mo there, even slightly further back, because this is where he got a chance to recover. So, like, he's just like, boom, right there. He's just like trapped there and completely loses 16. And like, had he reacted quick enough when 16 started moving his way out, he would have been able to like stick with him, I think. But as a result, he gets caught on that screen and then gets out there, is able to contest just because of the level of competition. But if that's like anybody with a clue in the NBA, I think he's kind of getting destroyed there. And that's probably an open three that goes in. This next one, this one mostly was just so I could relive this awesome skip pass from Quickly. But I do like how Grimes on this play, right? This is where I think he looked really good in transition. And there was another one that I didn't clip where he sort of took this Hail Mary football pass from Quickly, going all the way down the floor. But we'll see here. He's going down, and I liked that he had the recognition to sort of pause for a second as he's on his way down and waits to get that like communication from Quickly that it's going to happen, and then kind of makes his little burst there, and Quickly obviously puts it on a frozen rope and gets it to him. But I thought that was a really nice sequence there for Grimes. This one, super simple, but again, just like heads up play by him. And mine will feel really simple by comparison to some of these other plays you guys pull. But like, he gets the pass from Quickly here, doesn't even think twice, bang, right over to Selden, which I liked the quick decision making. And like, that was that was one thing that I noticed with Grimes. If you want to just pause real quick, I'll just monologue for a sec. Is like he didn't. There was not a lot of indecision to this game in Summer League, which I liked. Like pretty much everything that he did seemed like it was stuff that's been ingrained to him for the last number of years, and especially like his time in Houston. It seemed like everything, like he knew what he was going to do the second that the ball was coming his way. Like if he's going to shoot it, he already knew that ahead of time. But he also wasn't like so locked into the decision that he would make mistakes because, like as I already noted, like his turnovers were way down. I thought he took care of the ball really, really well. So I liked it. I liked that play. I liked that, he just in general was a good decision maker throughout this whole time.
Yeah.
So this one,
it's important to make one more as a shooter. Like it seems checkboxy, but it truly is. If you cannot make one more as a shooter, like you do have extreme limitations. You're simply a play ender, and you have to be the type of shooter who just like will knock down extreme challenges through whatever sidesteps. Like that's the level of shooter and the type of shooter you have to be if you can't make one more. So it is important if simple.
And you know what, if you go back to where you just were a second ago to where we were prior on the previous play, like right when he gets the ball, like right there, that's a situation where if that's like J.R. Smith or something, like that's just the first guy that comes to my head as far as like quick trigger, I'm shooting, he might have shot that ball, but Grimes already knew like now, and this is something that's probably being instilled by the Knicks coaching staff, which I think they did a great job of promoting like a strong perimeter movement, system last year where they worked the ball around the perimeter a lot, almost to a fault sometimes. Like some guys probably passed up on shots a little too much, but in that case, I thought it was perfect because when you're Grimes, like you have a very clean release. I feel like when he was outside of that one earlier where he kind of leaned into Sharif and got the and one there, by and large, I think that he wants to get his shot off cleanly the way that he's used to getting it off and doesn't want to have to make changes for, pressure. Like I don't know that he's going to be a great bad shot shooter, at least not yet. So it was a good decision there, good business decision. So this is a quick pick and roll with Sims, and this was sort of reminds me in a way of the one play that we were looking at with Okoro, but instead of trying to first off, who's that? I think that was Jaworski. The guy, I don't know, is he related to Ron Jaworski? Does anybody know Jaworski on the Hawks?
I do not think so.
I don't know how many Jaworskis there are, but at any rate, Sims blows the layup. But if you go back, real quick, he ran a clean pick and roll, and this was exactly the sort of thing that Bullock was getting killed for, in the playoffs. If you put him in this situation, he didn't know what to do with it, and Grimes has the wherewithal to just take the quick little dribble, let everything, matriculate, and then get it to his roll man going to the hoop with just a nice, easy pass. So, again, simple things, but simple things make me very happy. And then finally, this one, maybe kind of runs counter to what I was talking about a second ago, where I think that he wants to get everything off with space. This one, I thought that he got off with not a ton of space, and sort of here, his defender closes out really nicely, manages to get a hand in his face, and he looks a little goofy there, compared to how he normally shoots. I don't think that he normally kind of has his front foot more forward like that, and it looked like he maybe was trying to add a little bit of extra elevation to the shot there, but still manages to get it to go in. That's not something that I think he did a ton of during Summer League, but PD, I'll throw that to you. What do you think is, and hey, we made it to the discussion point anyway. What do you think as far as his ability, as a shooter and with his release and everything? Do you think that he has the ability to finish, to make shots, the tough shots, or do you think that he's more of an open shot shooter based off how he shoots the ball?
Probably more of an open shot shooter, but I think with a mixture of tough shots mixed in. I mean, I think that you're higher on the pick and roll ability than I am. To me, I think that Reggie Bullock, at least for the foreseeable future, is a more reliable pick and roll runner than where Grimes is, because Grimes is just does not have the flexibility to really handle in the way that you would, I think, ideally want, and is pretty susceptible to pressure. And you have a lot of different styles of guard who can run him off the line. So I think that for him, he fell into a spot the ball's going to swing, there'll be advantage. But seeing him as a second or even third action pick and roll guy, I think it's much more likely that he gets put into the quickly sets where you just you create advantage for him and he pulls out of it than allowing him to churn reads, because that's just not where his strength has historically been. And thus, to me, you're veering into accentuating his weaknesses rather than leaning into his strengths if you do like the stuff kind of like more on the RJ side.
Yeah. See, and this is why I came here, so that I could get the the guys who have actually been watching him for this long. Yeah, it was really intriguing watching him during summer league, because I think I don't know if I was just expecting him to have absolutely zero ability to handle the ball, but I think I'm definitely in agreement with you. Like, if he's at this point in his life as like a junior, a guy who came into the league after his junior year in college, and he's not like a better ball handler than what we saw on that transition possession, for example. Like, I question a little bit how much room for growth there is there. I do hope that maybe I hope to see more stuff like the set where they set the quick pick for him at the top, and like make that the extent of his ball handling, where you just sort of get him off movement and get him going downhill like that, and then just teach him to gather better and like finish his dribbles better. You know what I mean? Like finish his move better and get in there and like absorb contact or finish longer. Don't pull up. And Obi Toppin does the same thing. Like, he had so many times where he takes off like 6 feet away from the hoop and just expects like he's just gonna like pulverize somebody and dunk over them, and then realizes like, oh crap, this guy can body me, and then has to adjust midair and be like, oh, I guess I'll do like a weird little like flip layup now from 4 feet away from the hoop, instead of just taking it all the way in to begin with and trying to like get all the way to the hoop. So I think those sort of timing things with the ball handling are going to be important for him. I don't think he's going to end up like a guy that you trust handling the ball all the time, but I would like to think, and this might just be me being hopeful, that he'll offer a little bit more ability to at least escape situations where he's trapped than like a Reggie Bullock.
Yeah, understandable. So for the group, are we just running Chicago for him every single possession? Is that what I'm hearing? Do we have any other ideas that come to mind to get him a little bit more of a downhill catch, where you're putting a defense into a closeout harder, or he gets an easier route to the rim? Anything that bounces around in there? Any other ideas?
I mean, there's all the other, Miami, Chicago, all the other city named actions of handoffs and downhill stuff. But yeah, I think that's a good place to start for a lot of players of his like athleticism, build, and skill set.
Yeah.
I wish you had told me, like, when I did the RJ Barrett video, like I cut up a bunch of like Knicks plays specifically. There's so many actions where it's not necessarily something I'd go to very like all that much, but like when Randall runs inverted pick and rolls, right? You set it with a shooter of his level, and like you're gonna get something out of that action. Basically, like turning Reggie Bullock stuff into his stuff there's a little more off the dribble threat there, so like that's always good. But yeah, why not just go Chicago, Miami all the time?
Yeah, it's
actually.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking because the Knicks were allergic to Spain action last year, with except for Derrick Rose every once in a while, but with Kemba, maybe Grimes would be a good being the back screener, or he could be the one leaking out because he's got the shooting threat, and then he's got some size to attack downhill. But I was just thinking, I know Evan did the whole podcast on it, but like I could see him being used as a back screener and popper in a few different circumstances, and maybe he's just attacking closeouts there.
I mean, you could also have him be the static guy before you go into Spain. So like you just kind of run him right in front of the ball handler, sprinting, and then you run the pick and roll quickly, which would allow you to get advantage for both of them. Which I think that I'm going to be really excited about quickly Grimes lineups together, because I kind of think they're going to be used in very similar ways, and sort of to have the exact same archetypes on the court for first and second units, but it's certainly something. Damon, any closing thoughts on the Quentin Grimes experience as we saw in Summer League?
Yeah, I mean, Grimes is a guy I kind of had my eye on for Phoenix at 29 before they traded away the pick for Shamit. But I mean, he's kind of the exact prototype of what you want from a low usage guard wing combo. As much as volume from perimeter you can get out of his three ball, I think is just a bonus. Replacing Bullock with him is kind of perfect in my eyes as far as role goes.
Absolutely. All right. With that being said, time to move on to Ty-Shon Alexander. We good? Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm set.
All right. Tell me about the areas of tension for Ty-Shon.
All right, so Ty-Shon is a guy who kind of redshirted it a little bit for Phoenix this past season. Obviously, a lot more ready to win now talent, and it nearly won Phoenix a title. Along with that, though, Alexander had a really good opportunity to learn behind some of the best guard creators in the game, but behind Paul and Booker, and even Payne you could throw in as a pretty good creator for someone in his role. And you can really just see how he learns from those guys in these clips that we see. Like, he looks a lot like Booker when he's finding his mid-range shot. Looks a lot like Booker when he's doing live dribble skips. And frankly, this is kind of just going to be my way of making my case that he should, at times, depending on the matchup, get time ahead of Landry Shamet, who the Suns just traded for.
All right. You want to flow into it, or okay? So
Yeah.
Okay. We divided this one into sections as well. So the first section is offense.
Yeah, so on this play, it's just a nice catch and shoot. You see how he gets his feet set under him and has a really balanced upper body going into the shot. And it's something he's had since being at Creighton. He spent 3 years there and always had pretty good shooting percentages. And if you could just pause real quick. Those shooting percentages carried over, it seems. And this whole summer league was about putting him in roles that he could be in as part of the Suns' big league team, I guess you could say. After he had a short G League stint in the G League bubble, I think he played with Canton. It might have been Jalen Smith that played at Canton, though. But yeah, just getting the really solid, clean, quiet, even shooting form from distance was a big get to see. And then on this play, just taking it coast to coast is kind of a secondary break. I think it's really impressive how he uses the little in and out moves all the way from that half court area all the way down to making room for himself in the paint. I think he does a really good job of controlling his body. And then on this play, using the screen to get the separation he needs in the mid-range, he actually took, I believe it was 17 attempts over the course of the summer league from the mid-range, which is more than he had at the rim. And that's not really something you see from a guard at his age. And so that was kind of impressive. You can tell that he gets that from Paul and Booker. And then on this play, the catch into the floater. I didn't really know that he had as nice of a floater game as he does. But yeah, just kind of stepping into it.
What do you make of the decision not to shoot something like this? Which, like, I mean, I think it's fairly justified, but given like his shooting potential, like it's certainly possible for him to like pull this. Like, this is, to me, this is like a thing that with a reasonably quick release is a very makeable shot. Do you think it's just like, and it's not like the paint is necessarily wide open. Do you see this as like a sign of shooting hesitance? I mean, we also have a swing to the other side. Like, how do you go about evaluating something or this process where it's a guy who has a solid shooting track record but doesn't necessarily take the top, like the real shooter jumpers, but isn't necessarily like the guy who also will swing it to anybody who's wide open.
Yeah, I've found, especially over these summer league games, that he really likes the elbow nail area, and so I think just getting to a place that he's more comfortable with, I think that's what kind of drove him to look for the floater more. Plus, it is pretty open around that nail area. A lot of the guys are kind of contracted inside, and then the same kind of floater shot here, but coming out of the pick and roll. I think he did a really good job of working in the pick and roll. There are some clips later on passing out of it, and I think it was definitely the right decision to just float this up right here, because the roll man was definitely covered, and the rim was also covered by someone that was significantly longer and bigger than him. And so I think he made the right call floating it.
What do we make of this process, knowing, like, seeing how this Spain hasn't quite developed yet when he takes the shot? Would we prefer that he waits? Because, like, Fee is not stepping up. No matter what, Fee is not stepping up. Would we, like, just tossing this crowd, like, knowing that this play is, like, 60% done, he takes a solid percentage shot. Is that something that you guys would consider good process? Do you consider that to be more a sign of scoring wiring? What is everybody's general read of a point guard attacking in, like, without breaking a playoff, knowing that the play has not developed yet?
I mean, if I can, so maybe it's the angle I'm looking at here, but like, is he going off of his right foot?
Yeah, it's a goofy floater.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, if he knows that, like, you know, the biggie's not stepping up, it's not coming out, you know, it's one of those things where you have more time than you initially think you do, and it's about, like, reading that space and sort of making him make the decision. And, you know, if you know he's not making that decision, then you know, like, you can take your time with it. But yeah, I think it's also too, like you were talking about, the Spain didn't really go anywhere. It didn't develop, and, like, you know, if anything here, that's a pin in from the big, and if he doesn't go up with his right foot there, he can make that read and spray it out to the top of the key, because that's a pin in at the elbow, right? And the guard's defender isn't getting through that. So, like, there's more time than I think he makes his mind up. And, you know, I think he has much more time than that. And I think that's something, you know, you learn as you go through this, right?
Yeah, I think one thing Monty Williams talked a lot about during the playoff run especially is that he wants guys to take the first right shot. And this is a shot that Ty-Shon was kind of comfortable with throughout the summer. And so I don't really see it as too much of a problem. He tended to go off of his right foot anyway. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this one doesn't stand out as a particularly bad process. It's just, like, 2 or 3 times now I've seen him make early decisions. They're decisive, and, like, he's not, like, doesn't feel panicked. It's just, rather than letting things develop, you know, like, taking the first thing that's available to him.
Yeah, and then just another catch and shoot example. Really solid feet under him. It seems to be pretty consistent every time he takes a catch and shoot, which I like. Do you have any thoughts on the shooting form for him?
I mean, I've always liked it. It's just, like, I mean, there's a bit of funk in the gather, but I've never believed in him as a guy who's going to shoot, like, above league average, which I think is kind of necessary for his archetype. Unless he falls into a situation where, like, the style of defense that he plays is extremely valuable, which, like, I guess potentially could be Phoenix, but I've never truly believed in it.
Yeah, and then this play, just working out of the pick and roll again. This time he does make a beautiful read, I think, to lob to the roll man. Once he sees the big defender commit to him. And yeah, it's just beautiful process to me. And then he showed some flashes of self-creation opportunities. This was an end of game situation that, granted, it's an air ball at the buzzer, but getting to a shot that he's pretty comfortable with, I think still matters in a case like that. And it wasn't to determine win or lose. It was just tied opportunity to win, and if not overtime. So I kind of like it regardless. It's not his cleanest example of a shooting form, but still a pretty decent effort, I think. Yeah, so here he's in the left wing and kind of sticks in that area. They seem to be playing a lot of zone throughout the game, and he really just does a good job of disrupting any action that he's near, in my opinion, and does a good job keeping a high energy, especially on the closeout.
What do you make of the low steal percentage despite being long and disruptive?
Was it low steal percentage at Creighton too?
Yeah.
I would think it's more scheme things. Creighton isn't really the type of gambly team, I believe, and he seems just to be more conservative, play within the scheme, as opposed to being too aggressive like a guy like McBride that we talked about already tonight.
I mean, I guess I can hear that. To me, what I like when I throw it on film is more like the feel just lags behind. Like, this should probably be a steal right here. This one. Like,
yeah,
with the arms that he has, this should be a steal. Or at least you should be able to like get something out of one of those two. Like, one of those two actions has to be something. And he doesn't get either, and it just scares me to have a guy with those tools who like is wired to be aggressive, but like seemingly never is in the right place at the right time from a events creation standpoint. Like, I think that it sort of is essential for him to produce in that specific way. And that was a thing that jumped out to me about his summer league. It's just like there's so many situations where he almost has a steal, almost has a block, and then you wind back and look at the footwork, and it's just he's losing a little bit, or he's not positioned perfectly. And to me, that's a make or break differential if you're going to be on a team with older guys who won't either handle that or like make the steals and blocks themselves.
Yeah. This is probably the closest he gets to a steal right there, and then the closest he gets to a block also on that closeout. He forces an air ball. I don't know if he gets a piece of it or not.
Yeah,
but
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's just like, again, almost so many times. Like, it is like, again, like Lamar Stevens totally going to shoot this, and he just like that footwork right there. It's like it takes him 4 steps to get around the screen. Like, look, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to get to that spot. And it's like he's rangy, but in those moments, if that's 5 steps instead of 6, he punches this, and it's great that he like fights to get back. But like that, there's so many almost impact moments, and like I can feel myself buying into Ty-Shon again. I can just feel it every time I talk about him. I'm like, all you need is to recover about 6 centimeters, and in these like 5 clips, he would have had 5 steals.
Yeah, always 1 or 2 steps behind. And there's a clip later on too that he really gets caught. On this one too, it's just persistence, but you can see a little bit of sloppy footwork.
Yeah, again, this one right here, almost a steal. Like, by all means, should have ripped this, and just doesn't he has his man dead to rights right there. That's a rip. Doesn't get it.
Yeah.
This right here doesn't get it, and it's just like we've seen this movie a lot at this point, where like he's just almost in the right place repeatedly. And for it being summer league, I have some concerns about that.
Do you think it'll be like a thing where when they get to better athletes that he'll just get embarrassed?
Embarrassed isn't the word. It's just like I think that it will be. These won't be as clear, and so much of his value is in believing that like he can recover and contest shit, contest shots, and like we're seeing that at a summer league level, it's impactful, but it's not disruptive. And I think that you just grade both of those down. And I'm not sure that that fails the I'm not sure that Ty-Shon meets the grumpy coach test, where it's like, why should a coach play him over a vet? Like, what is the thing that he does specifically? And if it's like, well, he's an events creating defender who's long and can disrupt guard, it's like, well, the numbers kind of say no. And that's the balance.
This play is just an example of him stopping the fast break, which I think not a lot of guards do enough. But I was wondering how you view his defense in relation to the guy like Shamit that the Suns just picked up. That'll probably get his rotation spot, or his would-be rotation spot.
I mean, I think Shamit's not a good defender, but Shamit's also like he does the thing that he does on defense. Like Shamit is like gonna make some rotations, and you're never gonna want him to win at point of attack. But he's not like, again, like, look, these are 2 digs that could easily be steals. 1, 2, misses them both. Like we're on like 7 steals that are centimeters away, and to be a havoc defender, you have to like actually create havoc. Because like if you do that to Kyrie, like bad things will happen. And
yeah, I wonder if it could be like a thing where he's maybe scared to foul and was told, make sure you don't foul.
I mean, I don't think it, like, I hear that idea, but these are swings. Like he's trying to get that on both of them. So I think that he is simply a centimeter away from being an impactful defender. It doesn't end up bothering Lamar Stevens to the point that he can make a pass that gets an assist.
I'm just curious, was he a late growth spurt guy, or was he someone that's been his size for a long time?
Grew at Creighton. I have a vague recollection of a conversation with some people about that, but like,
like when I watch him, like when you're talking about how he's always like just a little bit off with the steal attempts, block attempts, whatever, he's got like some of that like baby gazelle in him of like doesn't quite know how to use his appendages yet. Mm-hmm. But it seems like if he could get that timing right, things would be really good. But it's like a matter of getting that timing right.
Yeah. And he is on the older side. Like I think that, for prospect head, but like it's just so like I think you've hit on the proprioception idea, because like it's happened too much to just be a matter of like, oh, he misses stuff. Because like J.R. Smith misses rotations, which is like, yeah, he did not get there fast enough. That was a missed rotation. This is a totally different thing where it's like he's in the right place and he just is a little bit off, and I think he's just thinking that he's a different size than he is, and that's a better explanation than anything I have, and that he's trying to understand where his body is. Because like, man, this is some pretty nuts tape as far as like almost being like the closest that I've ever seen a guy who had like a 0.8 steal rate have to having like a 12 steal rate.
I wonder if something like spending more time around Mikal Bridges or Jay Crowder more in the rotation guys, if spending more time around them and learning how to be more disruptive like them, if that could do him some good.
I mean, I think that I would lean the other way, where I would want to play him at a G League level, but like on really small minutes. Like I'd be like, you have 4 minutes to go get 2 steals. We are subbing you out at the 4-minute mark, because like I think that there has to be a production. I think that he split his year last year, and I just want to see him really refined to figure out what his NBA skill is. And I think this is the closest. Like I know it sounds nuts to say a guy who had almost a 1% steal rate in summer league as a guy who you want to see as a havoc defender, but there's something here. But figuring out how to channel it isn't necessarily the easiest thing. I mean, I'd love to hear from you guys how you channel a guy who like is almost good at a skill, knowing that there's not necessarily a ton of minutes to be had at an NBA team for experimentation, because like it's a good team, but might not, like at a G League level, might not work on that particular high skill. What do you guys think is the development pathway for a player of that archetype broadly? Everybody's too scared.
So I mean, PD, if you want to just go back to the very last clip, like I have, like, I mean, this is easy to see because it's slowed down and it's hindsight, and I've had a bunch of looks at it. But like the footwork, like you're saying, putting him in. You can pause it right here. In like situations where he has a limited run and he has to sort of figure it out in that way. That's a way to. I mean, on the lower end, like accelerate your process, because if you watch this, and like the thing that stood out to me a little bit is like his defensive footwork. It's not necessarily that it's wrong. It's not actually, but like it's just the reaction time is half a step slow, and as you talked about, it's like it's almost there. It's so close to being there. It's a matter of like step efficiency, if that makes sense. Because like if you watch this here, like especially when he digs, like he's being bouncy with his feet, and that's fine. But like he has the length and the athleticism to be less bouncy and more deliberate with his steps. Like, he's turning there, he plants, he slides a little bit, maybe that's the floor. On this one, he undercuts the shooter there. Like, he should be able to stop short. Mm-hmm. But like if you watch it like right there, if you can rewind it by like a half sec, like when he goes to dig, like his foot slides a little bit. And it's like if you can clean that up, then he can get out there and contest. So like right there, you see the foot slide, and then like he's off by about, I'm not gonna pretend to know angles at this point, but like he's off, his angle has changed now. Yeah. And so when he has to turn and go, like that's not he doesn't get there. And in fact, this probably could have been a 4-point player, right? Because of the way he gets under.
And like, this is only nitpicky because the archetype that he possesses is like one where the difference between being a useful player to a playoff team and not a factor at all is so small. Like it is such a narrow archetype. You're either like above the line and you will be on a playoff team forever, or you're below it and like it doesn't work out almost no matter what.
Yeah, and it's this thing too where I just like, to close out my point, is like it's exactly what you're saying. Is I wouldn't be saying these things if like if people don't know me. I wouldn't be saying these things if I didn't think like they could be fixed. It's not as if I'm saying like, oh yeah, his footwork is just slightly off, so like I mean that's it for him. Like he's not going to be a rotation player ever. But it's the thing of like it's just the slightest things, and like man, he could be doing so many things. Havoc defender, as you're saying, like he could be blocking the shot even if it's just like slightly cleaner.
I do think it's worth noting that Phoenix sold their G League team a while back, like 2 or 3 years ago, so they wouldn't have the kind of control over what Ty-Shon is, like the opportunities Ty-Shon gets at the G League level that you may hope for. Obviously, you can try your best to say, hey, we'd like him to work on this, but he is also he's still on a 2-way contract. Just wouldn't be on a team-controlled G League squad. I just think that's worth noting.
Sold your G League team to make a few extra bucks? By God, that's Robert Sarver's music.
Yep.
Oh
exactly.
My God. Can't relate. My owner would buy an extra G League team if he could, probably, just to say he did.
So, PD, who is the paragon of this archetype, in your opinion? As you're saying, like this archetype has a very
Anthony Melton.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
I like don't want to do tropes.
Right.
But like me caring about D'Anthony Melton is tropes. But like guys who are just like have supernatural feel and like are kind of basketball psychics, or like, basketball Magneto, or however you want to think about it. They're just like, they understand where the ball is going to be. They move in a way where they need to be, exactly where they need to be. And it happens so often. They're like, this can't be a coincidence. Like I had a teammate in high school who's like, maybe like 5'11", not especially tall for our team. Like we had people who were, 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" on this team. And he would always get offensive rebounds. And it was never because he was there early. He would just show up as late as like, and just always walk in and just like pick up the ball, never
never jumped for these, just like would always be in the right place in the right time. And every time we watched on film, it made a lot of sense when you watched it, but it never made sense in the moment. You're like, again? Word? So I think like for him, also like D'Anthony Melton is also an archetype the league really struggled to value until you proved it long enough. So I think that this is certainly an archetype that like may bloom later, just because teams aren't always willing to pass what we kind of termed the grumpy old man test. But it doesn't mean it's not valuable, because like how many teams are now like, yeah, well actually we really like D'Anthony Melton, we just couldn't convince my GM or whatever, which is what they always do for these guys. It's again a thing
going to try.
Yeah, the good old faithful is like, I was going to, and then some trades were made, and we had to cut salary. It's like, just one time, say like, didn't see it, didn't like him.
Former
You're
son
gonna
of
make me-
Anthony
you're gonna make
Melton,
me,
by the
like-
way.
Yeah, sorry about that.
For Javon Carter, yeah.
Yeah.
As you say, you're going to make me get really emotional over the Knicks not bringing Frank Ntilikina back right now.
Well, we don't have to talk about it. We don't have to talk about it. At this point, we may be talking about the NBA not bringing Frank Ntilikina back, which would hurt my soul deeply, because I remain fully camped out on Frank Island. All right. Any final thoughts now that we've invoked the name of D'Anthony Melton and really talked about exactly the level you need to be I don't say small because he has wingspan, but a not particularly like a non-position versatile havoc defender. Any final thoughts on Ty-Shon?
I learned a lot.
Well, I just want to thank you guys. This one ended up being a little bit longer. You got something?
I was gonna say that like he seems to like it would be really cool if he could be that D'Anthony Melton and play next to CP3 on one side and then play like in name only backup point guard while Booker takes all the ball handling responsibilities. Like there does seem to be that role there, but that role also seems to be, if he's not D'Anthony Melton wrecking havoc on defense, that role can be filled by like just about anybody.
Yeah.
And so that it makes a lot more sense. I could see that being like, oh, he has a path to success, but to get there, it's like you have to. Otherwise, we'll just fill that roster spot with a league minimum veteran or whatever it is.
The way that I've kind of phrased it to people is like, to be in this archetype, this like connector plus havoc archetype, you kind of have to be like a 90th percentile version of it, or else they'll take a 60th percentile backup point guard. Like that.
Right.
That is unfortunately how it works. But that's just where teams are comfortable, because teams don't want to gamble on like back end rotation spots that are clearly very valuable. And like, I mean, Chris is an elderly person at this point and like is liable to be hurt or just take games off or whatever needs to happen. And suddenly you're playing this person a lot. And like, would you be good if Ty-Shon Alexander had to start games for your team that is trying to get back to the NBA Finals? Like most teams would say no, even with Booker. So I think that's like that's why this archetype has to be so valued, is that like it pushes against like a lot of conventional expectations about the position, and also requires an intense faith in the level that this player is at the skills they are relative to how like find like a 65th percentile. Like I think that if you had the choice between like betting on this or like bringing back Jarrett Jack, or like shout out to running people into screen god, the the micro skill man himself. But like most teams would pick Jarrett Jack for like an 80th percentile or 70th percentile version of this if they didn't bring a second clear NBA plus skill. All right. Thank you so much for we got this in a little bit long. Appreciate all you guys. Let's bounce around and hit the plugs. Hit them as hard as you want. Anything that you've written, anything people can find you. You guys deserve the full marathon plugs for the lengthy stream. Nobody? Wow, this is shameful.
We're always all right.
Okay.
Fine, I'll go first.
Thank you.
All right. I was trying not to step on someone's toes. I went first during the first one, so I didn't do it again. So yeah, I'm Alex Wolfe. You can find me at the Alex Wolfe on Twitter. I host Locked On Knicks, co-host it with my buddy Gavin, and so you can find us at Locked On Knicks or wherever you get podcasts. The editor-in-chief of Knicks site is Strickland, where a lot of people that can talk X's and O's on the level of most of this broadcast, right, and do some fantastic work. Mostly Knicks focused, but if you want to hear more Knicks stuff, if you didn't get enough from me turning every discussion into the Knicks tonight, then you can always check out the Strickland, which is at the Strickland on Twitter, or the strict.land if you want to just go right there in your web browser. And I just wanted to thank all you guys too. I mean, this was like awesome for me. This is a little out of my comfort zone. If it wasn't abundantly obvious, I'm not like a huge film X's and O's sort of guy. I edit plenty of it, but doing it myself is a little daunting. So I definitely I appreciate all the insights. I appreciated the PD, especially the stepping in a little bit on some of my stuff and like explaining things a little further than the where I was at. But like this sort of feels to me like after I took my first like film class in college, like for like you know, movies, not like basketball film, but where like all of a sudden now like you look at a movie and you're like, oh, I kind of like recognize some of this stuff now. Like this is very informative for me as a viewer as well as someone that was participating. So thank you guys for being so smart and passing some of that knowledge along to me during this.
Well, this doesn't have to be daunting, and that's the thing I kind of wanted to do this for. That being said, if any local colleges do need somebody to teach basketball film, my rates are not reasonable. I will be charging an arm and a leg. So I will be referred to as
budget for that in sports administration or something. I don't know.
Refer to me. The P in PD Web stands for professor. Thank you very much.
Professor D Web.
All right, who's next for plugs?
All right, I'll plug myself. I am Bowser2Bowser. That's the number 2. You can find me on Twitter at that handle. I also write about the Atlanta Hawks for Peachtree Hoops. And last year I had a writing series where I would cover, the different games and the X's and O's and the playbooks and kind of analyze like, oh, why they did this, why they did that. And I was expanding it out to other teams. And then, COVID changed some plans. I'm a high school basketball coach. So all of a sudden we had a season really, really short with no preparation. So that kind of changed plans. But I'm hoping this year I can expand that and write about the X's and O's of more teams and kind of do it as a writing series. But if you want to read my stuff, the best way is Twitter, Bowser2Bowser.
All right, I'm Damon Allred, and you can find me on Twitter at I am Damon Allred. I write for Zona Hoops, where I do mostly draft stuff, and then Roll Call Sports Net I just joined, and I put up my first article about the Suns, and each guy's one avenue to improve most upon this season. So that's a lot of fun. So Twitter handle at I am Damon Allred. I'm close to 300 followers. So
I would like to apologize. I had it as just Damon Allred. I will fix that now, and I will do my best to get you to 300 followers after this. Thank you. As a mea culpa for having the wrong Twitter handle up. But all of them are right on the announcement, so I will just fix it in the announcement or in the posts when I put this up on YouTube and stuff. So
and I appreciate being schooled on Ty-Shon's defense more, being more attentive and wanting more out of it as opposed to just being there for contests. So that was a good learning experience.
I mean, this is every single time I come into one of these, I get so much perspective from you guys. So I mean, I'm glad that. There's a little bit of give and take because I always feel like I'm just harvesting knowledge from you guys and then relaying it, on other materials. So glad to pay it forward somewhat.
Ooh, following that, I guess that's cool. Evin Gualberto, of like the YouTube channel, that's probably where most people know me from. Bouncing Around, which I do with Samson Folk. Shout out to Samson. You guys know where to reach Samson at. The WNBA podcast, which I do the step through with the even greater Sabrina Merchant, more famous than like either Samson or myself. And I just tweet at me. I do set breakdowns, things like that. Player videos, I'm doing less and less of now, but anytime PD Web asks me to do something, I freak out for like 5 minutes and then I jump at the chance because I always learn so much. So
He's lying. I had to beg him to do this. It took 10 attempts. Do not let this man's fake humbleness come through to you. He has more YouTube followers than anybody I know. He's I mean, he hides everything. You can see he's hid how yoked he is for like 2 years. He's now hiding, just the absolute difficulty it was to get him on here. I had to go through 3 different agents. You wouldn't believe it. I'm PDWeb. I write on Twitter at Above the Break 3. My in-depth writing can be found on my Patreon, where the work is always free. If you would like to support this channel, unfortunately, the NBA has demonetized the Summer League for whatever reason. They don't want you to have this forbidden knowledge, which is why it's so important that we keep doing it. We're having these great breakdowns from these great guests. You can support, the amount of effort that everybody on camera right now put in, cutting the film, getting the stats, doing all the breakdowns. I'm literally just here DJing. You can help keep that going, even if it's $0, just by using a Twitch Prime sub on the Twitch channel, or following on YouTube, so the algorithm can serve it to more people. That's amazing. If you have $5 in your budget, subscribing to the Patreon means a lot. Other than that, we're gonna keep knocking these out until people no longer wish to be on the Summer League review. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to my guests; they were amazing. Thank you to everybody who watched, and thank you to all of those catching up later. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.